crowd is thinning.
The crowd is thinning. You guys, don't hit the wall. We only have one more week. One more week. Always the Friday, so we got to pull on through. So keep it up. How are we doing on our homework? How are we doing on the missions? Better? What about you guys? Kinda there? What's the struggles? What's going on?
I'm busy.
Busy.
I have the leaderboard. I wanted to tell you, I do have 2 close contracts. My
Ooh.
name's not on there.
So have you gone in and put them in there?
No.
Well, that's why your name's not on there.
I know. I'm sorry. That's where
Come on. So I am challenging everybody today. Get in there and get all this weekend. Get all your contracts. Go back your last couple weeks. Get them on the leading board. You guys are looking great. Look at that. We're doing really good. We're starting to get everything put in there. But I know we've had more appointments than 2. Nope, this one right here. Appointments for this
That's
week.
total.
I guess I can zoom in a little further.
Oh, that is for this week.
That's for this week. So if you go in, here's for this. Oh, I mean, wait. Share screen so everybody can see this. There we go. Okay, you guys. So we see in here, I know we've done more than one appointment. More than one person has done an appointment. I know we've got more than 2 agreements signed. Contracts in there. So make sure, let's get those in there. Maria's killing you guys because she is recording your stuff. So there's going to be a prize in the end for each one of these categories. So get your stuff in there. Go back to the last 3 weeks and this weekend, get all your stuff in your daily104.com so that you're ready to go. And if you've gone on any appointments, log those in, guys. That's a big deal. You should be having appointments. It should be starting. So you should get some recognition for that. And if you get a buyer's rep or a listing agreement, put it up there. And we want to share along with you guys. So we are in Friday of the 3rd week of Ignite. Congratulations. You guys are amazing. You are making it through, and I appreciate that so much. And I want to encourage you. We have one more week. It is easy to feel like this is the week I can coast, or I'm not going to come in, or I'm going to miss one. But this next section, the reason you guys are going to love it, it's all the stuff is once I get this, how am I going to get it to closing? Because once I get a contract, nothing's worse than feeling like it's falling apart. How do I hold it together? So one of the things that is a big part of what you get paid for isn't finding someone a house. That isn't why you make 3% commission. Going out and getting someone to sign a listing agreement, put a sign in the yard, and take a few pictures and put it in the MLS. That is not why you make 3% of the commission. You make 3% of the commission because you're going to get it from contract to close. That's where the money is made. When the deal is going to fall apart, you're going to hold it together. That's why you get paid well. Because any monkey can find someone a house because you got it all on the internet, right? Anybody can send a photographer in to take pictures and upload it to the MLS and wait for someone to show up. That, and a lot of people think that's what you get paid for. And that's why you have a hard time with your commission. The next 4 classes are how you hold it together. When there's a bump in the road, when there's a struggle, you need to hold that deal together. You need to get that seller the most money in that closing. You need to get the buyer the best possible protection and the lowest price for what they're getting. That is our job now. Now you're about to go head to head. Before, when you're in there alone and you're working with a seller, it's relationship based. That other agent is not there to build a relationship with you. They're there to protect their side, and you're there to protect your side. So these next 4 sessions are super important. This is where the money is made. Well, this is where your clients will see why you make money. Your money is made in lead gen. Does that make sense? So this is a time to ask a lot of questions. Now, if you haven't ever gone through a negotiation, you may not know a lot of questions to ask Chad today, or Mike Hicks next week, or those kind of things. You may not know those questions. Ask them, say, okay, I would ask everybody, what's the hardest thing you've done and how did you get through it? What happened? Tell me about a contract, if you ever had a contract fall apart, and how did you keep it together? Because if you guys can figure that out, people will pay you no matter what. Because you can go back and say, listen, my under contract to close is 100%. I don't lose a deal once we're under contract. Now, one of the best people I've ever seen keep a contract together, best, Tori Rainey, Jim Windmiller's assistant. She will keep a contract together if she has to burn the world to the ground to do it, right? But what she's doing is she's working for that client. She's going to say, no, guys, let's think outside the box. Let's come up with our other ideas. If things start going wrong, let's figure out a way to make this work. Let's get this into a win-win. And she goes in there and says, let's work it out. And it's never, oh, this is out the door. Let's find another way. That, you guys, is going to give you confidence in this business too. Because if deal's falling apart, you feel like, oh my word, I just worked for a month. And that was going to pay my mortgage. And this deal is falling apart. And there's a lot of emotional pressure. And if you guys can't keep your emotions together, your buyers and sellers are not going to be able to keep their emotions together.
Spin out this one.
Right.
Really horrible things where you're going so hard and you're pressing so hard, and all of a sudden, one little step, it's like we're really high heeled shoes, one little misstep, everything falls apart.
Yep, and everyone's feeling it already because now we're quite a ways in. We've invested earnest money. We've probably done some inspections. We've got, all those things. We've been looking for a while. Maybe we lost another house. Maybe the seller had another buyer that, said he was going to buy, or maybe had a bad experience with the last realtor. Whatever's happening, we are in emotional crisis right now because we're almost to the finish line. So this is important stuff for you guys to know. Important stuff for you to know. Because the transaction coordinating is great, but you can pay someone to do it. No one can keep this deal together with you guys. So the negotiation, what Chad's going to talk about today, how do you protect your side? How do you say, I'm going to make sure I'm protecting my seller in this transaction? How am I going to make sure this buyer doesn't get taken advantage of? Those kind of things are happening. So get excited about the next 4 sessions. This is like, when you're in algebra and you're wondering whether or not this is ever going to apply to you in your entire life. You're like, oh, these next 4 classes, this is rubber meets the road. This is going to be your day-to-day life. Okay? And the better you get this part, the more you can focus on lead gen because your deals aren't falling apart. Because it is hard to get on the phone when you got a deal falling apart. Right? Okay, excellent. So let's get started. We've got, hey, Phil. Sorry, you guys can't see. His wife came in and was like giving him a little hug. Save it. Turn off your webcam, Phil. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. I'm just kidding. That was really sweet. So let's go on. Let's take a look. As we get started here today, how is your lead gen going? How is the lead gen going? How are you feeling about your contacts and your calls? How's it going? Let's talk about. Is it feeling more comfortable?
Getting braver.
Getting braver. Excellent. What else? What else is going on? Any struggles? What's the struggles?
New leads.
Finding new people to call if you've gotten through your list. Tammy brings up a great point. You guys are going to get through your database at some point. How do you make the second call when you just called them a month or 2 ago? That is hard because the first time you're all excited. This is the first time we're going to talk. Now I'm going to call them back. Now what do I say?
If you shared the app, you were just saying, hey, I didn't hear from you about the app. Or what did you end up thinking about it? And start the conversation out.
Exactly. Have you had a chance to play with it? Has it been kind of fun? Oh, I didn't. Oh, great. Well, I just want to make sure if you get a chance, remind them because they may have forgotten to use it. You want to remind them. Now, this is also a great time to say, hey, you know what? 9 times out of 10, once you and I have spoken, you've never thought of really noticing people are buying or selling before, but all of a sudden now we spoke last month, last week. Have you come across somebody now that might be looking to buy or sell? And they're like, yeah, that's funny. That's right, somebody at work did. Now, you haven't taught them long enough to call you, right? You wanted them to, but you've only ever said it once to them. That's a great time to go, hey, have you come across somebody? Because usually you do. That's my script. Usually once I've asked one time, all of a sudden you start seeing people who need to buy and sell. But I know it's hard, I would love to. But can I call them? Do you remember who it was? And can I reach out to them and let them know I'm offering help? This is great for you guys because this is going to continue. You've got to ask for those referrals. You've got to ask for those referrals. And you did call a week ago, and I promise you, probably 2 of the 3 people have come across somebody. But they didn't know, they hadn't learned yet how to get back a hold of you and, blah, blah, blah. That's a great time to say, hey, but remember, if you just hit the app, and you can hit contact me and call me right from the app. Then you're reiterating the app again. Your phone number. And hey, by the way, if you don't remember to call me, that's okay. If you'll share my app with them and show them that they can call me right from there, that way at least they know how to get a hold of me. Because they don't have to pass out business cards. They don't have to, because they never have your business card. But they've always got your app. So it's a second chance to make that second call. Now, what about the third call? What are you going to say on the third call? right? This is what agents stop doing database because they don't want to call again. They don't know what to say on the third time or the fourth time or the fifth time. So what would we say on the third time?
Well, I mean, you can always wish them well regarding the holidays that you're calling around.
Sure.
Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's.
Absolutely.
What do you do on the 4th of July? Did your family have a great time? Just any excuse to call, be congenial, and then, you know,
Just say,
the
hey,
question.
yeah, absolutely. Now, what you don't want to feel like, what you don't want your drunk monkey to sneak in is, I'm asking them how their Thanksgiving's going to go, but really I just want to ask them if they need to buy or sell any real estate. Right? You feel like I have an ulterior motive that I'm calling for. And so you can feel like you don't want to say that or you don't want to call because you're feeling that inside. I'm telemarketing at this point. I literally just want an excuse to call him and ask him for this. So you've got to get past that. So Stephen does a great job, and Stephen is a very congenial guy. So he'd love to call and chat about, how your Thanksgiving's going. That's comfortable for him because he genuinely cares. I am not that same person. I don't care what you're doing for Thanksgiving. I am so sorry that I don't care. I don't want to know about your kids' soccer games. So I have a hard time making those friendly calls. Because what I want to just do is say, can I just cut to the chase? Do you need buy, sell any real estate? Know anybody?
Yeah.
But I can't just call every month and say that to them, right? That's when they start going, ignore Jessica's calls. She's a little crabby and she just keeps calling me and begging for business, right?
Start texting. No, Jessica, no.
No, I don't. Stop calling me. But so what I have to do is I have to look for a way to come from contribution. How can my call the second or third or fourth time be a benefit to them? So that's when scripting comes in great. Because if you're calling your entire database once a quarter, that means once every 3 months they're going to get a call. And I absolutely can say, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. But that's not comfortable for me because I don't care about that. So what I care about is stats. So what I do is I say, I just want to let you guys know, just as a reminder, because I want to be 100% honest, guys, be 100% honest. Don't try to pretend to be fake. Don't. It's just not worth it. You're not going to enjoy your calls in that way. I'm going to say, hey, I just want to let you know, I haven't spoken with you in 3 months. Just want to let you know how the market has been for the past 2 months because I'd like you to think of me as your real estate resource. So I'm just going to call and let you know how the market's going because everybody wants to know how's the market, right? So I have a little quick spiel. By the way, this many houses have come on the market. This is how many have sold, which means we're still in a seller's market at about 2%, 2 month absorption rate, which means if we would sell everything that's on the market right now in 2 months if nobody else came on the market. They're like, oh, okay, that's great. So just so you know, it's a great time to sell a house. Do you know anybody who possibly might want to sell? Have you come across anybody? Because it is a great time to sell. How does that feel? If you got that call every 3 months with a stat on how the market is and a little hit, it's still a great market. So if you know anybody, I would love to help them. It is a great time to sell. Okay, do you have any needs? Everything going okay? Do you have somebody who's helping you blow out your sprinklers? It's that time. Oh, I don't know. I've got a great guy. If you need somebody. No? Okay, awesome. Anything else I can help with? Great. Is it okay if I call you in 3 months and let you know how the market is? Sure. Excellent. Have a great Thanksgiving. Right? You just got to figure out, what do you like to talk about? Just come from contribution. But you can always talk about stats. Now, how do you get the stats? How do you know what to say?
Show up at team meeting.
All right, Stephen. Every month at team meeting, Mike Hicks or someone walks you through the stats of the market. And you can get 1 or 2 nuggets to say just by coming to team meeting, and you get lunch as well. So every second Thursday of the month, you should be in this room from 11 to 12, right? And then we send the stats out afterwards. Now you may get those stats, and if you haven't been in team meeting, you don't even know what they mean, right? You don't even know what they mean. So it's great to be in team meeting and hear what Mike Hicks has to say and pick up a little stat because I only needed that much, right? How many houses have come on the market? This is how many sold. It's a great seller's market. In fact, our average price point is up 7% from last year.
I keep telling people in certain areas, and I kind of adjust it for the area, but if they're in that mid-range, if they're even thinking about their forever home, the home they want until you know, now the kids are getting close to be growing out. This is the best time to build or find your dream home.
Absolutely.
And with new buyers, you know, it might be a tight market, but you can still find a great home. You're going to get more money now than you will.
Absolutely.
Far more.
Absolutely. Maybe you talk about mortgage rates. Maybe you make an appointment and go talk to Movement Mortgage and just find out what has happened with the rates. Because this month, I'm going to call and talk a little bit about mortgages. How's it going? So I have a little something to say. You guys just need 30 seconds. I do not, just so you know, I don't want to stay on the phone with you for 5 minutes. So if you call me and you want to chat for 5 minutes, I'm probably not taking your call next time. Now, a personality like Steven, he may want to chat. So I need to be ready for that if I'm really going to be in a relationship with him, right? If I truly care about him in my sphere, I'm going to know, and maybe I note that in his database. He likes to chat, and now I need to become more like him, because I really am trying to build a relationship with him. But if you call me, I want you off the phone in 30 minutes, 30 seconds.
30 minutes.
30 minutes. Hey, I'm golden there.
Right? So you know what I'm saying? So that's where you start to really get to know the people, know what they need. If they're not a forever home person, don't go into the same spiel for them, because maybe they're the first time home buyers. So just, you guys, be comfortable listening to what they say and respond. Now what that means is you need to study. You need to study the market. You need to have the list from My Kids with Stats on all of the price points. You need to have known that. Because if Tammy says to me, or if I know Tammy is a young first-time home buyer, I want to know that and have something to talk about in that realm. If she's about to move up and her husband's a doctor, and they live in a $500,000 house, I want to know that all of her kids just graduated, and they may not want to stay in that house forever. You know, so listen to them and get to know them. So when you call back every 3 months, you know. That's why your database is so important. If you don't have notes written down and have that thing, you don't really make a congenial personal call. But if you'll get personal, they will send you referrals, and you'll have to do far less than you. Right?
Craft fairs. The next 2 months until Christmas, there are craft fairs almost every weekend. So you get open houses, craft fairs, because obviously if somebody's at a craft fair, they care about their home. Yeah. They're interested in what goes into their home.
They're probably
that
interested in talking about houses.
And it's a great way of saying, hey, you know, that would look great. Do you have enough room for that in the house you're in now? And all of a sudden you find me out.
Absolutely.
You know, we thought about it, but this is really a bad time to notice.
No, it's not.
Right now you guys can get a really great mortgage.
You need a script for right there. When someone says I don't think it's a great market, you need a script. Because you say the same thing every time. How? You know, it's a bad time. No, it's a great time. We're up 7% over last year. So you'll get the highest price from your house than ever. Winter's a bad time to sell. No, it's not. There's no looky-loos in the winter. If someone's moving in the winter, they have got to move. They are looking to buy. They'll pay more so that they can get this deal done, right? There is buyers. So how many houses sell in the winter? Do you know how many sell in the winter versus the summer? Because you know everyone says that. Oh, is winter really a good time to sell? Maybe I should wait till the spring. You need to develop a script based on stats, because if you say, no, it is great. Well, what do you mean? How is it great? And then you go, I didn't want you to have any follow-up questions. Right? Why is it great? Know something. But you only need to know a little bit, you guys. And then my kid says that his best script is, you don't need to be an expert in every price range. You just need to be the expert in the person's price range that you're talking to right now. Oh, what are you looking at? You know, and then know that. My kids, I say this because Mike is our statistician, right? You know that he knows the stats. He has his little chart that has all of the price ranges, how many houses have been on the market, how many sold, on his phone. So if someone asks, he doesn't just try to pretend like he knows. Oh, he says, hey, let me look. Well, you know what? In 150 to 250, this is how many have sold, and this is, you know, he knows it. And he doesn't have to come off the top of his head. He just pulls out his phone. So I encourage you guys to do that, okay? Because you guys now you guys are going to move into, I'm going to mute you, Savannah. Now you guys are going to move into the time when you have to make a second call and a third call. And if you only know 50 people, you might have to call once a month until you build that. Now, I encourage you, as you're building, you guys, you need to build your database. How many of you guys have held an open house since we started Ignite? Excellent, excellent. Are you guys doing it the Ignite way? You guys remember where to find that? How do you find the Ignite way to hold a house open? It's in the Market Your Listing, number 5, session number 5. They have what's called a 7th level open house. And it gives you ideas. Do I have, knocking doors, making calls, but how are you gonna make that a successful open house? There are specific things to do. And it's not just put balloons on the corner. It's a tactic like have your open house sign out the day before. Don't just put them out as you're opening up the open house. Because you want to generate, look, where's that open house? Where is that open house? And have it from Friday on Saturday. Are you guys circle prospecting the neighborhood beforehand? Are you guys going out and knocking the doors and handing out a flyer? Are you opening your door an hour before for the neighbors before you open it up to the public? Those are all in that open house section in section 5, Market Your Listing.
Section 5 of this?
Ignite section 5, session 5. It's called Market Your Listing. If you go to session 5 in the in your market that you're listing, look in the table of contents and you'll see the Market Your Listing section. You see 13 or something. Okay? So hold open houses, guys. Get out there. If you don't have buyers and sellers, hold an open house. If you don't have a house to hold open, come to me, come to Dwayne, come to Hallie. We'll find you an open house. There are agents that would love it if you would hold their listings open. Right, Dwayne? Oh, because they do not want to. Because they're dumb. Right? People who don't understand that power of the open house, it's because they think that no one ever shows up because they put their balloons out on the corner and no one comes in. Wah, wah. I'm sorry, this is work. This is lead gen. Okay? So take it and take that open house to the next level. All right. We are going to do 5 calls. Oh, anybody have any questions? So you should be doing your missions. Get those taken care of. Blah, blah, blah. Tracker, we did that. Okay, let's make our calls. I need 5 calls made before Mr. Murdock shows up. I hope he's going to show up. No, we're just going to keep talking. I don't even have a binder. So let's make 5 calls. Let's do some lead gen. If you have an open house, call some people. Okay, you guys, we're going to get started. And this is the famous Chad Murdock. And he's going to be here teaching on negotiation today. So I got them prepared and psyched up in their heads that this is actually where the rubber meets the road. This is where we earn our commission. Negotiation and keeping the deals together. So if he skips stuff, you guys go back and read it. This is your chance to ask him questions, but don't let him get off the tangent. If he's not following the book, you just crack that whip and you get him back on track.
I kind of like this.
Yeah. So
People usually like when I get on.
no, there are people that want you to stick to the book. No,
But
you're
you're
good.
gonna leave, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. We're gonna.
I'm going to be watching upstairs the whole time.
Oh, you're gonna watch live.
Yeah.
That's why she records it.
That's right. I'll go back.
Is this the only one they recorded?
Only this one. Okay, you guys, you give me your attention and you're off. I do, right?
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Chad.
Yeah. So we have till noon.
You have till noon.
Okay. So where it's recorded, I like to start out and know my audience, but if it's recorded, I guess I don't really
You
care
just
about
keep
it.
going. Yeah, don't worry about recording. Did everyone sign in?
No, I didn't.
So this is the largest Ignite group that I've ever taught. Pretty cool. That's good.
And we're into week 3 and they're still all here. They're amazing.
That is amazing. How many people have fallen out? How many people are the first one?
Actually, this is my second.
This is your second.
Yeah. We started out with 18 people.
Yeah, we're a little bit short.
But there is a
Still
few
18.
that are viewing remotely as well.
Yeah, we got Phil here, and he is looking just strong. He's an ox. So, I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, so I'm Chad Murdock. I've been doing real estate for about 20 years. Started out in the mortgage business and got licensed in 2001. And I've owned a couple of my own brokerages and joined Keller Williams about 4 years ago. Mainly to make sure that the cap that I was paying was an investment and not an expense. Because when you own your own brokerage, you don't pay the cap 100%. You have other expenses, but I just wanted to, I hadn't seen a model that I felt like that cap could be an investment and not an expense. And so, anyway, but it's been a good investment for us as we've grown. Last year we closed about 150 deals. just building our base to keep growing and growing. So anyway, but feel free to ask lots of questions. We want to be really interactive. I will warn you that this class, when I've taken a class that goes on offers and contracts and negotiations, it's usually been one of the more boring classes because we like go over things that can be boring, but I'm actually more excited to teach this class than I have any of the other ones I've taught, just because there's so many important points of negotiation. And I feel like if I can teach you some of the things that I've learned, it can make you look really professional and really smooth. It can help you with your transactions and being able to figure things out. And it just makes you more professional. And I think it'll just help you. Because I mean, we all learn the same things over time, but if you can learn now these things versus figuring it out the hard way in 3 or 4 or 5 years. So anyway, so hopefully you take some notes and hopefully you get some good things out of it. But I do like to kind of know who I'm talking to. I know quite a few of you already, but I'm still going to have you introduce yourselves. And I want to know how long you've been in real estate, how many deals you've done, and what your GCI goal and your unit goal is for 2018. You guys know what GCI is? And your gross revenue. Just so I kind of have a feel for what everybody's own goal is. And there's no such thing as a wrong goal. I mean, your goal is the right goal. Steven
Atchison, been licensed for about 1.5 years. About 2/3 of that was as your ISA there in the office. And Rachel and I have done almost 4 deals.
Sweet.
So he introduced me. I'm Rachel Atchison. 4 deals together.
And what's your goal for 2018?
We haven't sat down and got that figured out yet, but it's
It's huge.
in our team meeting we went over that yesterday, and that's something that we're going to be working on over the next couple of
On
days.
our career growth initiative, it's set at 48.
Sweet. You got it then. 48. That is 4 deals a month. Very doable. So awesome.
I'm Sheila Mitchell. I've technically been in real estate for 4 years, as I did property management. I got licensed in April. Done 2 deals. I'm the EA for the affinity.
Okay. And who is in the affinity?
Jeff Stricken is our team lead.
Oh yeah.
And then we have Bill Bates.
What was that?
That was Phil Bates.
Bill Bates.
Oh, got it. So Phil is with the affinity team?
Yes.
Okay, I thought Phil was with the Cindy team.
He was.
He was, okay.
I didn't hear that. What?
Phil, it's not your turn yet.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
And we have Jackie Ryan.
Oh yeah.
And of
Okay.
course, Shelley.
Yeah, awesome. On your team. Phil's a stud too. His brother's a little iffy, but Phil's good.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's start. Let's go to you, Phil.
Licensed in March. I've done 17, and I got 2 more closings coming up this month.
Sweet. That's awesome.
Thanks.
What's your goal for next year?
Oh, 100,000.
$100,000. Okay. So that is about 40 deals.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Phil. Where'd Savannah go? I saw Savannah. We'll get her back. All right. You're up.
Trish Polis, licensed in April.
Okay.
And I got 2 to close.
Are you in Idle Falls?
And I'm looking up the soccer board
Okay.
upstairs.
Excellent.
And I'm looking for 2 a month right now. That's my goal.
Good goal. So buyer's agent for soccer.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
I'm hopeful to change that and bump it up, but right now I'm just gonna
It's a ladder.
Yeah.
So you're just gonna go up the rungs.
find
Cool. And 2 a month your goal for next year. And how many deals have you done so far?
2.
2 deals.
Mhm.
So my name is Stephanie O'Connor. As
started doing really small. I got licensed in March, and so far I've done 15 closings, and I have 3 active listings. And me and my husband have a team, same as Aaron O'Connor, and we Sky Realty. So yeah, I don't know. Our goal for next year is about 40 homes.
My name is Tammy Cooper. I was licensed in September of this year, so I'm brand new to this. I haven't gotten any contracts yet. I may go to a team depending on what happens in the next couple of months. But GCI, after everything, would be around 200,000 a year. And I would like to have about 50 transactions a year. 2018. I'm not getting any younger.
Yeah. So what did you do before this?
I was a paralegal.
Okay. Good switch. Awesome.
I'm Lynn Wilson. I have been, we went to class together.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had my license for about a month, I think. I'm on Michelle Wilson's team. Michelle.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm her buyer's agent. So we just, 2 houses just went through. So that's where we're at. My goal for 2018, I want to try and make 100,000 a year net. So I think it's around 240.
Depends on your structure. But yeah, 200. Oh, net. Yeah, about 240. At least. I mean, you should. And your background before?
I did insurance for a little while, health insurance, and race.
Best job ever.
Until I grew up. Then you kind of
Nuts,
stuck.
and they're hard. Seems like sometimes the hardest part of parenting is once they leave.
Yeah, I know you.
For sure. No question.
Oh yeah. Once they start dating, you lose all control. You get a cell phone, start dating, you know so much transit and start writing.
Alrighty, thank you.
My name's Harlan Williams. I've had my license for about a month. I haven't closed any deals yet, but my goal for next year is about 2 a month.
2 a month.
Yeah.
Awesome. And your background before?
I was going to school for a little bit, but I wasn't really finding anything I was interested in, and this is something I've always been curious about. I bought a duplex when I was 19, and I've just figured if that's what I want to do, I should get my licenses. That'll make it easier and make money. Yeah.
I'm Brittany, and I'm actually not licensed. I'm just a transaction coordinator.
Brittany.
Walker, but it was Tuller. So like Jen and I.
We know each other.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about you doing that. This is David's bridal.
Yeah.
We worked,
I did for a little
and they
bit.
just shut down.
Well, just the one that I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm just a transaction coordinator for the Nelson Group.
Just transaction.
Yeah, I didn't say that.
That's a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. I know a lot of your family very well.
Yes, you do.
Good family. Cool.
So, I'm about a year and a half ago. What else did you want to know?
Goal for next year.
I'll go for next year. 15,000.
About 50,000. Cool. That's awesome. All those are doable goals. You guys learned a lot in Ignite so far.
Mm-hmm.
Some big takeaways. Say so.
Well, class is
It has not or has been.
has huge.
Yeah.
Because I've been on both sides of, well, I've only been on the buyer side. I haven't really sold so much emotional baggage to go through.
I can talk about that if you guys want me to go off track. Jess wants me to stay on track, but I'm happy to go off track. Savannah Kim. Welcome, Savannah. One of my favorite people. And now she exited out.
I'm here.
So you are the second to last one for an intro. Introduce
What?
yourself.
Me?
Yeah, you're up.
I don't know how to do this.
What are your goals?
Okay, am I there? Can everyone hear me?
Oh yeah, everybody can hear you.
No, can't hear you.
Can any people can see me?
I'm the only one that can see.
So what did you say again? I'm sorry.
Just introducing ourselves, what our background is, how long we've been in real estate, and what our goal is for 2018 real estate wise.
Okay, so I've been in real estate for almost a year, I think. And my goals for 2018. Hold on, my daughter's saying her prayers right now. I'll get back to you with that.
Amanda Scott, you're up. Savannah, can you mute it?
How do I do that? Hold on, I'll figure it out.
I got it. Savannah, if you want to talk, just start doing this. Okay, Amanda.
I've been in real estate for 4 years now, and I'm new to Keller Williams though, just transferred in October. My goals for 2018 are to double my business from this year. So.
And last year was how many?
So far this year, I'm at 20 units so far. So I have a goal of helping 7 people before the first of the year, and then doubling my business next year.
Awesome. I like how you said your goal, helping 7 people, because that's what it's all about. So, okay, thank you, Amanda. All right, well, let's get rolling in class. I'll see if I can figure out how to use this new system here. So, anyway, the slide here, if you guys can see it, we're not going to spend much time on the slide, so I'm not going to share it, but getting your head in the game, making offers. The hardest part of real estate is getting someone to sign a buyer rep and someone to sign a seller rep, and then you've got somebody who says, I want you to represent me, and then you have to represent them. And hopefully you want to get the buyer under contract on their house, and you want to get the seller to get an offer and get under contract. And there are a lot of things that you can do to make the deal go smooth and to make the emotional part. You mentioned the emotional part, right? To keep the emotional part here, because the transaction, no matter what happens, is going to be doing this. And your job is to keep everybody like this. And in order to keep everybody like this, you've got to stay like this first. Because if you are like this, then how do you think your clients are doing? Worse. Even worse. Because they're looking to you to keep things calm. And so, but in order to keep things calm, you have to have an understanding of what you're doing. And how, if you're brand new, how do you get an understanding to be able to keep calm? What do you do? What are your options? Who do you ask questions to?
You ask questions by people who have experience.
Exactly. And are people open to helping you? Of course we are. And most of you are on a team. Who's not on a team? Okay, so pretty much everybody's on a team. So those of you that are not on a team, you can ask your Ignite instructors, myself. You can ask Mike Johnston. You can call Jess. There's a lot of people that are here to help you. And you don't have, that's why you're part of Keller Williams, right? So you need that help. So anyway, if you have questions, just, okay, I'm going to share screen this. Is that working for you guys? Amanda, Phil, and Savannah's gone. Can you guys see that? Okay. All right, so the offer process. So when you're making an offer, you have the buyer and the seller, right? This is a really good flow chart. And what's funny is the cool thing about Ignite is over time, you're going to be saying these things and you're going to figure out these things. But Ignite has put it all together. I mean, that's kind of the value of Keller Williams is they've basically just taken the best practices of people and they put them here. But it's funny, when I joined Keller Williams, I was like, man, I say a lot of the same exact stuff, but it took me 8 years, 10 years, 12 years of kind of saying, that's what works best for me because everything's kind of evolving. And so basically you can take these flow charts and just, do it like the people have been doing it for 20 years. So when a buyer makes an offer, they present it to the seller. I have a nice little pointer.
I think the pen was your pointer. Although that may be a pointer. Oh, bing.
Yeah. I represent the seller usually, pretty much 99% of everything that I do. So you get an offer, and we're going to talk about the buyers. We're going to go over checklists. As a seller, when I get an offer, this is exactly what I say to the seller. I just say, hey, look, we have 3 options. We can accept the offer, is what I say first, or we can reject the offer. And also, just so you know, another reason why it's good to say this is because let's say their house is listed for $200,000, and this offer is for $170,000. How do you think the seller's emotional state is going to be if they get $170,000 on their kingdom at $200,000?
They're not going to be real happy.
Yeah, they're going to be upset. It's emotional. It's offensive. As much as they say, I wish people would just get us offers. Why can't they just get us offers so we don't have to drop the price? Well, because if they brought you an offer low, you'd probably be offended. I wouldn't be offended. A low offer comes in.
Low offers like looking at them, telling them their dogs are going to swear their kids.
That's the way they look at it. But then that same exact seller will then go get their house under contract, and then they'll lowball somebody else's house and be like, well, it's not offensive. They just need to look at them like, don't you remember how you were last week when we were having this conversation? But they don't even see that. And so it's funny how the brain works. But anyway, the reason why this is good is this can help you keep them on an emotional flat line. Because when I do this, I try not to get into the emotion and let them vent. I just say, hey, look, here's our options right now. And I typically try to have them email them the offer so they can kind of see it first. And then, we talk. It used to be we used to do everything in person. But now, honestly, most of the offers are presented. So I say, hey, look, we have a few different options. We can, if it's low, I say we can reject the offer and just say no. We can accept the offer and move into contract, or we have to prepare a counter. And I also say, look, the buyer is going to throw out their best case scenario, so now it's our job to throw out our best case, and then see if you can somewhere meet the middle. I mean, that is totally the conversation I have every single day with sellers. And Ignite does it the same exact way. So, anybody have any questions on this part?
Do you ever have clients ask you how many offers or too many offers? And counter offers. Do you ever get to
Nobody asks me that, but I try to bring that up.
After
Once-
3, 5, 6, 8 offers. and
Once you
others?
get to 4, the likelihood of that deal going down drops considerably. People are just done, emotionally spent. So once we get to counteroffer 3, I start saying, hey, if you want to sell this house, we got to put our cards down now, and we got to make this deal work or not. Because once you get a 5 to a 6, I think I've had one deal go to counteroffer 6 at the market. Most of them are just. And the thing is, if we would have negotiated better from the beginning, probably could have done better. Good question. At least twice, it was like. Representing the buyer. So basically, to represent the buyer well, you have to prepare to write the offer. We're going to go over a checklist. Hopefully, it's on a PowerPoint. It's an awesome checklist. We'll see. I haven't really looked at what the PowerPoints are. I just looked at the I think there's a checklist here. We're going to write the offer. We're going to have a checklist for writing an offer. Very important that you spend some time and make sure you have the offer right. Because if you miss something, like if you don't put in, that it's going to have an inspection. If you don't put in that it's, FHA financing. If you don't put in that they really want the washer and dryer, you might be buying a washer and so it's important, especially if you're new. I would not submit an offer without having somebody review that offer, your first few deals. What I did is I wrote kind of, and I had somebody help me, just kind of like a perfect offer on how it's supposed to look. And then I just kept it in my top drawer. And when I'd write an offer, I just pull it out and just cross-reference it. That's what I did. So, because it makes sense when you write it, but then, a week later, it's like, man, I don't remember what was supposed to go there.
So the area I struggle with, because I have the same thing, the section I struggle with is the cost section where we're checking off, because it's different depending on the loan. And I just had one come back, and I had a seasoned agent like, why did you check these boxes? And I'm like, oh, I was using a cheat sheet.
Yeah.
And I'm new. Can I use that as an excuse?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Are you going to go through that?
Yeah, totally.
Would you mind?
We're going to go to the checklist, and I actually have a cheat sheet of my own in Evernote, and I'll share with you guys what you check for VA, what you check for FHA, what you check for RD, and then you can, it just makes you know what you're doing. And then they're going to be like, okay, I've never heard of this agent, but obviously they've been doing this for a while, and your negotiation starts off at a different level. Whereas if you miss a whole bunch of stuff, and you have this, and you're like, I'm a new agent, I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, that agent might use that to his advantage in negotiation. Okay, then we write the offer, present the offer to the listing agent. That's it. All right, buyer offer objections. Make sure we're on the right stuff. Going back, a couple things. Representing the buyer. So, writing up kind of a perfect offer. I want to go over that a little bit later. And then I recommend strongly, and it'll be in the checklist, but you want to, a lot of people just email us an offer, and I'll never hear from them. They'll never call, they'll never text. And, sometimes we haven't seen it. We get all these emails and just falls through the cracks. So I just recommend to best represent your buyer. I mean, usually people will see it, but I wouldn't just rely on them checking that email, especially on a weekend, to know that it's there. So I always recommend that you call the agent, leave them a voicemail, send them a text saying, hey, just, I sent you an offer. And I would also recommend, again, going ahead, but just try to be courteous and give them some time. If you send an offer Friday night at 4 o'clock, don't say you want an answer by Saturday at 10. People have plans, and just try to be courteous. Even though your buyers are excited, if you can stay even kill, the deal makes you work out better. Buyer offer objections. I don't think the checklist is on this PowerPoint, so we're going to go. Let me just scroll through these real quick. Okay. All right, so the checklist is not on the slides.
No, I have it up in front of me. Do you want me to?
No, I've got it right here too.
Oh,
yeah, so we'll go over. I just wasn't sure if we had a PowerPoint with it. So we're going to dig into this. So checklist for preparing an offer. You guys have that checklist in front of you? I mean, I would totally just follow this to a T. And we're going to go over each one of these things. So obtain the buyer's pre-approval letter. I'll stop sharing the screen. Okay. Why is it important to have a pre-approval letter?
Tells me you're serious.
Yeah. When it was a buyer's market, it wasn't that important because we were just any offer we could get. We wanted to get put something together. Right now in the seller's market, if someone's interested in the house, if you have a buyer interested in the house, what are the odds that someone else is also interested in that same house?
Fairly high.
Plan on it. And so if I'm a listing agent and I get 2 offers, one, and they're both pretty comparable, and one's pre-approved and one's not pre-approved, who am I going to go with? I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Pre-approved doesn't mean pre-qualified. Pre-approved means they've got the funding versus pre-qualified, which means they might have the funding.
store. And they never did anything with that lot. They're going to build a shop. So I said, you know what? You can get maybe 5 or 10 grand for this lot if you sell it all together. Well, let's sell the lot separate. List that for $45,000. Let's sell the house separate. And so we just got an offer on the lot, for 45 for close to full price. And anyway, it came with a pre-qual. Like, great, pre-qual. Is it okay to call the buyer's lender when you represent the seller?
Good practice, actually.
Does everybody agree with that? I agree. You think I've ever been yelled at by a buyer's agent because I called the lender? Yeah. And so it made me think, but it's good practice. I mean, that lender is going to tell you the scoop. And you think the buyer's agent really understands financing, can represent well how qualified they are? Typically not. It's not their job. So on this particular example, great buyer's agent, one of the best agents.
Okay, so world class, Jim. Yeah, anyway, it's all marble and granite countertops. She's gonna need to go check in.
That's Walker. Hi, Jody. So, anyway, we got a pre-qual. They want to close in 30 days. I called the lender out of my due diligence as a listing agent, and I just said, hey, and he was a contractor. So contractors mean what on income?
It's all or nothing.
1099. Yeah. And what do people not like to do on their taxes? They don't like to pay taxes. They like to write stuff off. So that's a really good plan unless you ever want to buy anything. You have to show income on your taxes. And so anyway, I talked to the loan officer, who's a good loan officer, and he just said, you know what? I haven't seen this guy's taxes, and he hasn't filed his taxes yet for 2016, and I don't even know if he's filing for 2015. But he's going to file them. He's meeting with an accountant today, as we speak. He's with his accountant, and we have to see if he gets the income, and if he gets the income. So I mean, a pre-qual is over the phone. They pull your credit. You tell them over the phone how much you make, and you tell them how much money you have in the bank. And he's like, well, I make this much. Great. Credit score is good. And you have that much in the bank. Great. A pre-approval is when they see those taxes, they see the bank statement, and they know everything's good. There's a problem. If he hasn't done his taxes yet, he has to file those taxes. And then you have to get a file certification of filing from the IRS. That sometimes can take 4 to 6 weeks. So do you think he's really going to be able to close November 30th? I'm thinking no way. But I'm not an accountant. There might be an e-file trick to get it quick. But I told my sellers today, I said, let's just wait until Monday. Let's meet with his accountant. Let's hear from the accountant before we put this under contract. So, pre-approval letter, huge. If you are not getting your buyers pre-qualified before you write an offer, you are not representing them well, in my opinion. Because they might miss out on the deal. And right now they might be like, well, I'm not really in a hurry. I'm not in a hurry. Well, you never know. I mean, they're only going to be in a hurry when they find the right house. And so you need to have them have that process.
What do you do in the case of cash? How do you verify funds?
Yeah, you verify funds. So I ask a couple questions. So I say, okay, is the cash in your bank right now? And is it liquid? And if they say yes, and it's liquid, then I trust them. That's the case. But a lot of times, and you got to be careful with this, they'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm a cash deal. Oh, great. And they'll talk to you on the phone, they'll brag with their cash. I'm cash, tell me with this house. And they are totally fine with showing you 5, 10 homes, or having you show them 5 or 10 homes. And then you ask that question when they're ready to write an offer. And they're like, oh, well, I don't actually have the money. Well, I was in this car wreck and I'm waiting for my settlement, but it's going to be in. Has anybody ever been in a settlement, waiting for money on a settlement?
Both sides of it, and it can take, even when you get an agreement, a lot of times there are contingencies in that contract where you only get stipulated amount per month or per year.
Yeah.
You're not getting, and you have to remember, out of that kind of, out of whatever you think you're getting, somebody else is taking a chunk. It's never been that big an expense. So.
Yeah, and it takes forever. I mean, in that case, when they are like, I am 100% sure it's going to happen in 2 weeks, my attorney said so, I call the attorney every single time. Like, who's your attorney? Let me just talk to them so I can, because I am trying to represent them. And I talk to the attorney, and the attorney almost every single time will laugh. It's like, obey. I mean, this could be months. So I wouldn't count on this. But wouldn't it be good to know that before you show them 5 or 10 houses? So our buyer's agents on our team, as the Atchisons know, and Savannah knows, I mean, we want them to sit down to a buyer's consultation first. Explain, you know, the buying process. Explain what they need to do to prepare to like be totally ready to jump on that house, and have them sign a buyer representation agreement saying, okay, here's what we do. You want to hire us or not? And then you're totally ready to go. And then they're attached to you. They're not going to go. And then you tell them, hey, just don't call on signs. Call me, and let's get you. Because nobody really wants to call on every sign and then have 5 or 6 agents call them all the time. You know, they want representation. They just don't understand how it works.
So on your buyer's consultation, does that have the formality of coming to my office or talk, or is it at the house when you show up?
90% of the time it's in the office. 10% of the time, if you can ask them a few questions and if they're urgent, then go meet at the house. But odds are, if you don't make an appointment when you're on the phone with them that time, you'll never come. So they're calling on the side. Okay, secondly, produce a CMA. Why is it important to do a CMA?
On the buyer side?
Yeah.
To establish a baseline, to make sure that what the listing price is even in the market, is even in the neighborhood of what the market reality is at that moment in time. Sort of a snapshot of the market.
And you can tell them that, you know, this is what we should write an offer on based on my analysis. So as a brand new agent, are you ready and prepared to do good market analysis? I would say no. Yeah, I would say no too. So you need help. Yeah, you're Keller Williams. I mean, that's what we're here to help you. I think that if you had 5 agents, seasoned and non-seasoned, and they wanted to do a CMA on the same property, I mean, the range would be all over the place. So as you're new, one thing that you got to respect too is buyers, even though they don't feel like they know the market, they're searching all the time and they're comparing. If they're writing an offer on a property, it's because it's like the best out there. So that in itself, you know, does that. But you need to learn how to do a CMA. That's another class. You guys have that yet or not? Yeah, that's coming up. Do you have to have that?
We had neighborhood training.
In Ignite, there's one just on doing market analysis. Sounds like it was really
So Brett is best.
not that.
Brett?
Brett?
Brett Manglewood?
Yeah, he's very good. Okay, so a CMA, it's important. I wouldn't say it's the most important. Some of these other things might give it a priority for a new agent, but it is important. I mean, your success as an agent is knowing how to value properties. So you gotta learn how to do that. Review the tax records. How can you review tax records? Who do you call? Call the title company. As an agent, you get a free property profile. Usually now you can get those same day. I'm not patient enough for that, so I usually just call the county directly and just get the information I need. Ensure the property is still available and that you know how the property is. I guarantee you, if it hasn't happened yet, it will many times. You'll show a property, they'll be excited. Again, if your buyer's interested, it's for a reason, and someone else is going to be interested. You got to make sure you call the agent and say, hey, is there any offers on this? You're going to bring an offer and make sure it's still available. They know, because they might hold off on accepting an offer if they know you're bringing an offer in the next 8 hours. Does that make sense? Another thing that's important too, not as important now, but make sure it's not a short sale. We have a property right now on Dara Street that we just dropped the price $20,000 because it's, I mean, it looks nice, but it has some issues, and they're pretty big issues. And so it comes out around $210,000. It's a at 155 right now. And so it's getting tons of showings and tons of activity. Phil, where's the muscles, man? You getting cold or what?
Sorry, I got a little chilly.
Okay, all right. He was showing off his muscles before. He does all classes with his shirt off.
Yeah, whatever.
So anyway, but people aren't noticing it's a short sale. And so we got an offer yesterday, and they want to close in 30 days. And I said, well, you realize it's a short sale? I'm like, no, we didn't notice that. Can we close by December 1st? How long does it take to close a short sale?
A long time.
How long?
As long as I don't know, but I would say months.
Yeah, like
90 days at the earliest.
the earliest. 3 months to a year. So do you think that's important for your buyer to know that before you go to the effort of showing it and writing an offer? Are most buyers going to be able to wait for 3 to 12 months?
Yeah, not generally.
So you got to find the right buyer. So that's important. And that's embarrassing. If you go through all that work and then they're like, oh, well, how come we didn't know it was a short sale? And then they'll probably just throw me under the bus and be like, well, that agent didn't say it. It was on the underlies.
So is that kind of the main thing to know when it's a short sale? Just say this is going to.
Foreclosures, same way.
No, foreclosures are not. Foreclosures. You guys know the difference between short sales and foreclosure?
A short sale is pre-foreclosure when the bank is going forward with foreclosure proceedings, where a foreclosure has indeed gone back to the bank. They don't want to own that any longer than necessary once they have it.
When it's foreclosed, the bank owns it. So they can sell it and you can close in 30 days because they own it. The short sale, the people, the borrowers still own it, and they're behind on payments and they haven't foreclosed yet. So the bank has no ownership of the property, but they have to approve an amount lower than what is owed to them. And so that's where it takes time. Used to be in 2012. Well, right now, about 3 to 5% of the market, probably actually 1 to 2% of the market is actually short sales. Who has an idea of how much of the market in 2012 was short sales and foreclosures?
30 or 40?
So is the benefit that it's not hurting the seller's credit? Why are they trying to do that?
You know, short sale. It is better on their credit, and they have the option of working with the bank to forgive the amount that they made. And two, it's just, you know, some people just don't want to give up, walk away. It's like, I want to make this right. Let's work with the bank, pay the utilities. They can afford that, but they can't afford the fee. You know? So there's a lot of things, but right now it's tough. Banks don't want to do short sales. Okay, when speaking with the listing agent, build rapport and gather as much information about the seller and the property as you can. That's important too. I mean, you can kind of find out about them, and you can, I mean, what if they're moving in a couple months, you know, or they're moving in 2 weeks, or what if there was, you know, a death in the family, or what if it was in the middle of a divorce? I mean, isn't that probably important to know, just so you can be somewhat courteous, you know, to that type of situation? You can kind of share that, you know, with the buyers, or if it takes like, you know, if you say you want to hear back by Monday at 5, and it doesn't happen until Tuesday, wouldn't it be important to know that somebody's in the hospital, or that, you know, they're both out of state and they, you know, they couldn't talk? I mean, it helps. That communication helps keep things smooth. Inquire about the activity on the property. Obtain a seller's disclosure statement. Who's seen a seller disclosure statement? Yeah. Where do we find those? Is it important to see one before you write an offer? Yeah. And where do you get those?
Yeah, hopefully it's in the listing.
I'd say for the, I mean, I guess I don't represent buyers very much, but would you guys say that for the most part it's in every listing? Yeah. I mean, sometimes we'll forget, but I mean, for the most part it's in there. And if not, just get, ask the agent to come out to you so you can review it. So, and that's a whole other thing. It's so important to make sure that you fill that out correctly. I mean, And that's like your get out of a lawsuit card. Don't ever fudge. Don't ever try to not disclose something. And that is important for your sellers and for your buyers, for you to be able to review it. Because the last thing you want to do is have a closing, and 2 months later, them saying, you know, hey, this is a huge problem. I didn't know about this. And then you'll be like, man, they totally deceived us. And then you'll call the listing agent and be like, hey, we disclosed it. It was on this property disclosure. And guess what? You signed it. Is your buyer then going to look at you with good feelings? I mean, you need to go over property disclosure. 9 times out of 10, probably 9.5 times out of 10, there's going to be no problems. But I mean, if you're doing 20 deals, you're going to find one that's some issues. I think everybody here wants to do at least 20 deals, so it's important. Okay, so when you write up the offer, I'm not sure how to do that with everybody on here. I was thinking about having you guys look at an offer and we can kind of go through some of the key points, but I don't know how to do that with Phil. It looks like Phil's the only one. Everybody else has left us. But
I think you have an offer that you can drag and drop onto the screen. Then he can see it and share it that way.
Okay. Do you want me to go over the offer?
Yeah.
I mean, in most CE classes, that is like, for me, the most torturous part. But it is really important. So I don't want to have it be extremely boring, but hopefully I can keep it lively. And we just got an offer on property, and I just got permission from my seller to go over that, to share it with you guys. See the screen. How many guys know Blaine Coburn? He wrote this offer, so pretty sharp.
Jody says she's still online watching.
Oh, she is perfect. She's just blinked off her screen.
She's shy.
Jody, don't be shy. Okay, so who can help me get this on the screen? You know how to do that, Steve? Oh, this might be it. Yes, perfect timing. How can I show?
Why is everything off, Chad?
Perfect timing, Jess. we're just getting back on track.
How are you?
How do
Let's
I,
just shut the
how
whole
do I
computer
sh-
down and talk.
How do I share my email? Offer and put it on the screen so they can see it.
Where's this screen?
I don't know.
It
I
just
just,
really
It's
I
right
just clicked
there.
this button.
You can see an arrow.
I just
Go to the
clicked
left.
this, hoping that I could.
Oh, you blacked it out. Click it again. There you go. Okay. So all you need to do is pull your up, grab that tab, drag it to the left.
There.
Yep, keep going. It's like a second screen right now. Great job. Great job. And you can minimize that a little bit. Now just remember to share your screen so they can see it. I garbage can. Green a garbage can down the bathroom. If anyone was having frustration in there without a garbage
I can't get a mouse.
Here it is.
You see the mouse?
Yeah, it's right across the top.
Oh, bingo.
Yep.
Good to go?
Good to go.
Nice.
Okay, so this is an offer. We're going to kind of go through it.
Did you share your screen?
No, thanks, Jess. Jess? Hey, Jess?
Yeah.
Where'd that share screen button go?
At the very bottom of all your participants.
Oh, share screen, yeah. Got it. Thanks, Jess.
You bet, Chad.
Jessica.
Anytime.
Jessica. Forgot your name.
Thank you, Chatterton.
All right, Amanda, Jody, Phil, can you see this offer on the screen? Okay. Let me get back to my pointer. Okay, so when I get an offer in, I just get like a little piece of paper, Post-it or something a little bit bigger. And my offer analysis is pretty simple. I try to just kind of condense everything onto one little page, and that way, if I call them, I can just kind of go through my little notes, and then if I can't get a hold of them, I'll take a picture of my note, and then when they call me back, I can just go on my phone and go through the offer, and I don't have to go through all the pages. I analyze it. I try to just dig into it and analyze it all at once, and then I'm prepared anywhere I need to be to talk to them about all that. So what you want to do is fill in as much as you can. Make sure your cell phone number's in there. It seems like all the time now you get people that aren't putting their cell phone number in there. It's really hard for me to contact them and to try to correspond with them. When I get an offer, I want to, first of all, call the agent, and I want to talk to them and find out about the buyer, their situation. One question that I've started asking lately is I just say, how do you want me to present this offer? Is this the highest they're willing to go, or are they willing to go more? And why is that a good question?
Because you might get an answer.
Because they're going to tell them, it's like, oh, no, they're willing to counter. It's like, so that one's been fun. So anyway, make sure you have their name in there, both sides. So I look the key part in offer analysis, purchase price. So basically, I'm going to write down on my piece of paper, I'm going to do the address. I'm going to write down Dwayne, and I'm going to write down his cell phone number. So that at any time I've got my little note, usually a picture on my phone, and I can just go back and be like, okay, here's Dwayne, I can call him, and this is the note for Yellowstone Highway, and the offer's for $305,000. And then I write underneath it, I do like $305,000, then I do $500 EM, so that's earnest money, so I can tell them $500 earnest money. Then on the other page of on the other side of my paper, I have questions. On the bottom part, I put questions that I have for the agent, and then on the top part, I'm going to do my recommendations for the counteroffer. Is $500 low for earnest money on a $300,000 offer?
It's low.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was one that I was going to recommend that would change. Earnest money transfer. What does that tell you about the buyer?
say you're likely out of town buyers?
Not necessarily. And not necessarily that they have, what did you say? Liquid assets? No. What it's been on a different offer. Exactly. It means they wrote an offer on another house, and that deal didn't go through, and they're transferring it to this property. Yeah.
Okay, so when that earnest money goes in escrow, it's just gonna sit there with the title company, and then what if they decide they don't want to sell? They just go to the title company. I mean, if they go decide I don't want to buy a house anymore, they just go get the money. Or
Well, good question. I mean, that's another reason why you want to sit down with the buyer, because you never want to buy her. I mean, you don't want to write an offer on a house. But during their inspection period, if they get cold feet and they want to walk, then they can get their earnest money back. But after the inspection period and they get cold feet, they can back out, but they're going to lose their earnest money. And
so what do you make of this? Is there more chat on this? Because why is there more chat? It is a VA loan, so no money down. That is why there's only 500 earnest money.
Jody, you can unmute your. You can unmute. There's an unmute button, and all I can see are your eyes. You're like Wilson. There we go. Can you unmute?
Yeah, I can unmute.
Okay. Can you not see me?
I can see you.
Okay, and you can see the offer?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. What was your question?
No, I was just saying it's a VA loan. That's why it's only $500 earnest money, because it's really zero down.
Yeah, good point. But does that, it's still low. I mean, for a seller, don't you still want more earnest money than 500?
Yeah.
That's from the buyer's point of view. But from the seller's point of view, and I'm going to be seller biased because I mainly work with sellers. But yeah, from a buyer's point of view, the lowest earnest money possible. But from a seller's point of view, if you had an offer to a seller, it means they're not totally committed, to this house. They want a little more teeth in this game, even if they get it all back, which they probably wouldn't a VA.
Uh-huh.
But I will always recommend my sellers to counter hire. In other markets, you do about 1%, but we counter back to 1,000. Here we're a lot more. It's a lot less. But you can do. I've done 1,500 before on that price range. It depends on the, if I don't know who the lender is, then we might counter a little higher on that. Good question, Jody. Did that answer it? I mean,
yeah.
You might not agree with it, but I mean that's my answer.
Right. No, that's fine.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I mean, is there really a right way to do anything? No. I mean, everybody has a different style, and so it's just a matter of coming to terms and finding and getting a closing and still being friends. So important here too. When I look at an offer, I look immediately for 3 check marks. After I've done price, earnest money, I'm looking to where these check marks are. Here, here, and here. Is it contingent on another house selling? Why is that important to know? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they may not even have their house on the market yet, or it may be just a couple days on the market, or, is it pending? If it's pending, then that's more likely to be a understood, but that's just more likely.
Yeah. Is it better to, if I got an offer that was contingent on a house selling, and they didn't have their house on the market yet, I would probably recommend to my seller not to accept it.
Because of the contingency.
Because you never know when that offer is going to come in. You don't know if their house is overpriced or underpriced.
They may still be doing construction on roofs. You have no idea.
That changed the buyer's market though. Very lot more.
Yeah, because a little bit more. Yeah, you'll see that change. And then if there is an offer accepted, then it's a little different story. It seems like right now I've been getting a lot to where the buyers are getting an offer on their house, and then they are getting the inspection done and signed off, and that's when they're writing offers. Because then, are they a pretty strong buyer at that point?
Yeah.
They have a lot of leverage to negotiate because they have to have some could be 3 weeks probably. So anyway, I look at that. I look at if it's an all cash offer or not, and I look at if there's cash proceeds from another sale. And, a lot of people don't check these boxes, and it's important because it makes me nervous. I have to verify that because if they just forget to check it, and down the road we realize that, it could kill the whole deal because we weren't informed. Oh, they have a house to sell. We didn't check it, but then I didn't ask either. So it can go both ways. So we have an obligation as a buyer agent or a listed or seller's agent to verify what's checked and what's not checked in an offer, which is why it's important that as a buyer, you're complete on this.
So does that go with the contingency box? Is that kind of the same thing?
Yeah, I don't really know necessarily. This one's not as important to me. I mean, what you want to do is just make agreements and never put them in writing. That's the best way to do it. Oh, hi, Mike. What was that? No, put it in writing. I'm going to come in here for a couple of minutes. I have a lot of confidence in you. Tell them. Go verbal. Go verbal or go home. Yeah. So anyway, cash proceeds from another sale, that one's not as important as these two. But basically, I mean, they might not be getting money from the house that they need to buy the house, but it might just be that they can't qualify with that payment. And so it's important to know. But if they're qualified, it doesn't matter if they get cash or not.
Now, does it matter the proximity on that? Because we have a buyer who sold a house in Utah like last fall, and their lease is expiring here in January, and they're looking to buy here in the near future. I mean, cash proceeds from another sale, obviously they're going to have some there.
It's not
even worried. Okay.
Yeah, because they already have the money. So
Okay,
there's no
so it's not a
contingency.
dependent. Gotcha.
I mean, it's only if it's under contract that you would worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Right, Mike? Yeah. I mean, I don't see that.
So can you give me an example, I'm sorry, on this cash proceeds from another sale, other than if they have to sell their home first? What would be an example?
Okay. So let's say, for example, someone has a house and they're doing a VA loan and they have it listed for $200,000 and they owe $180,000 on their house. They're probably not going to walk away with any cash. So there's no cash. So their down payment isn't coming from this sale. But where it might matter more is, let's say, for example, they're not doing a VA, which is a zero down. They're doing a conventional loan, and they're saying that they're going to put $100,000 down and cash proceeds for another sale. That's probably telling me that they probably don't have that $100,000 in the bank right now. It's again contingent on that sale of that property.
It just seems like both boxes would be.
Yeah, they would. Yeah, if cash proceeds from another sale, I mean, yeah, it would be the same. I don't think there's many situations where it's going to say no. I mean, there wouldn't be. If it says no here, it should say no here. But it might say yes here, but it could go either way on this one.
And it could be they're maybe selling a plot of land, and that would be a yes and possibly a no there, just as a random possibility.
But you never have to disclose that.
Or get it in
Just
writing.
kidding, Mike. I heard that. Okay, so cash new loan proceeds. Is that a mistake?
I was wondering about that. Just they do have to take out a loan as a VA.
Yeah. So that is a mistake. I mean, you put in here where the cash loan proceeds are. He should put 304 or 5. He should put 305. Is really what I should say. And then it would say here minus 500 is what they're going to get back because they're good currency. Anyway, it's important to notify this. What type of loan it is. Why is it important to notify the seller what type of loan it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's repairs that are going to be required, that the seller might be expected to make those, and they're not going to be planning on repairs if it's conventional. And that might weigh. If you have two offers, one's conventional, one's FHA, everything else exactly the same. Which one's the better offer? Conventional. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because FHA is going to require there's no peel and paint, there's handrails, there's smoke detectors.
Fewer strings attached by the bank.
Fewer strings attached. Yep.
What was that about purple?
Okay, so terms and conditions, plumbing, heating, electrical. I mean, that just seems to be a standard clause that we put. It's more of a traditional clause for this area. They put that seller to have all corner pins marked by a licensed surveyor. Is that an important thing for me to put down on my little sheet to talk about? Why is that important? To make sure the seller knows it. It's a cost, yeah. Because they want the seller to pay for it. Probably $350 at least. So this is why it's important. You just can't email an offer to a seller and say, look it over and let's come up with a counter. I mean, you have to, if you're not in person, you have to break down these things. Like, for example, I'll have somebody and they'll call, you guys know the disc assessment, and it's like, you know, the high Ds. I mean, there's like, hey, I looked it over, this is good. I'm like, you know what? I'm glad you looked it over, but can I just bring out the few points that I think are important for you to know? And a high D wants to get stuff done, but they're going to miss the stuff. And so it's important that you see, that you say all these things. And so I just run through this list. So then you have what's included. And the main thing that I look for is, does this match the MLS? Because do you think I'm going to remember, or do you think you're going to remember when you see this offer, what's included, what's excluded, what we listed? I mean, we're probably not going to remember it exactly. And I don't think you want to rely on your memory to do that. Because let's say, for example, that potbelly stove and that safe in the kitchen is like a family heirloom, and it was excluded in the offer in the MLS, and they threw that in there. If there's anything different than the MLS, do you think that's important to make sure that seller knows? Even
contract would override whatever is in the MLS.
Absolutely. Contract would override. So you talk about emotion with sellers.
Why is it people always include the range in the dishwasher, but the refrigerator always can be a flip-seat?
It's just tradition. It's like, well, I mean, everybody's weird. I mean, it's traditionally, that's what people do here. In Boise, you can go there, and traditionally, they do things different. Traditionally, here, the buyer will always pay for the appraisal. In Boise, the seller always pays for the appraisal. So, I mean, it's just weird. I mean, it's just traditional things. So,
But those are negotiable, right?
oh, yeah. Everything's negotiable until you put it in contract. Until it's buyer and seller side. So anyway, I go over this. So my conversation with the seller is going to be, okay, so they want the range, dishwasher, microwave, potbelly stove, safe in the kitchen, the riding lawnmower, and the fridge is negotiable. That's what you had said that you want to have. And so are you still good with that? And I'll be like, yep, that's what we said. Rarely will it be another conversation. I write down who the title company is. Are all title companies created equally? Why not? Yeah, I think for the most part, all title companies are pretty much the same. It's just who you work with and who you have a relationship with. So I don't really bash any title companies because the person I might have a bad deal with at Pioneer Title, my favorite person at Alliance might move there next week, and I'm going to look Pioneer Title. So it's important you form your partnerships with lenders and title companies. And it's important that you have more than one. Inspection time period. Is it important to let them know about the inspection? Okay. 10 business days. It's a long time. And when you throw in weekends, I mean, inspections can go a long time. People, for the most part, try to get those done fairly quickly. But still, I mean, if someone puts 15 days and they have a 30-day close, is your seller very protected? I mean, that buyer has a lot of liens. And so if you're upset the buyer, the longer the inspection period, the better. For the seller, the shorter the better.
For a situation like that in your counter, would you take those days down a couple notches to tighten it up a little bit for your seller? Or is it?
I'm fine with 10. But if it's over 10, I'm going to be having a conversation with the other agent saying, hey, why do you need so much time? You know, that's a little too much for us. So, and I want to find out their reasoning. They might have a valid reason. And then I can convey that. But typically, yeah.
10 is kind of the outside edge of your comfort zone.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 5 to 7 is best for a seller. But again, if you're representing the buyer, the longer the better. Right, Mike? Okay. Why is this important? Actually, no, not that part. No, that's important, but this part here, that's important. All these are important.
Right, back up to 139 and 140. This is something that not everybody understands. Up here, when you've done your inspection, you have the 10 days it says to conduct that.
Mike, do you want to come up here where they can see and they can hear you better?
Who's up there?
We have Phil Bates.
Hey, Phil.
We have Lori and Jody.
Okay, on line 139 and 140, it talks about after they've done their 10 days, they have that time frame to do it. They don't get to keep those full 10 days if they've turned in their offer, or they've turned in what they want. Some people think, oh, it's still within my inspection time frame. I'm just going to send out a new RE10 and replace the one I did. No, read this. It says on there, once, and there's the 10 days to do it, it says, once buyer delivers written notice to seller, it shall end the buyer's time frame and is irrevocable regardless of if it was provided prior to the deadline stated above. So you have 10 business days, but you give it to them in 5 business days. You don't get those extra 5 days to change your mind. You've given them the notice, then that clock that he's talking about, the 2 days to respond, now kicks in. Okay?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. So this is important too. I mean, everything's important when the broker's in the room. But no, you're good, Mike. We'd love to have you here. So domestic well, they want it basically done within 10 business days, septic and all that stuff. So we know down the road they're going to be asking for that because they're doing that. But this is super important here because once they give you the notice, the first thing I try to do is get in touch with the seller as soon as possible because you don't typically, a lot of times you're not in a position to make a quick answer. You might have to call and get some bids, call around a little bit and get an idea for these things. And so typically you have 3 days. Dwayne put in 2. But 2's fine. I mean, that's 2 business days. If you have a weekend, you have 4 days. But basically you have 2 business days to do that. And so I tell my seller, I'm like, hey, and my system will actually email that immediately over to the seller and say, hey, here's your inspection response. Chad's going to call you today. And if we got it today and it's 2 days, you have until Tuesday at 5 o'clock to give them a response. So we have plenty of time. Chad will talk to you today. We'll make a game plan on what we need to do. And we need to make an answer no later than Tuesday. So you set that expectation with them. Because if you don't set that expectation and they get that email and they can't get a hold of you, they think emotions are going to go like this because they think, oh, I'm going on this. But if you set an expectation, then people are calm. Okay.
Okay, can you explain this scenario really quick? Okay, so let's say you made an offer and the counter offer is if there's anything wrong or found to be wrong in the inspection, we will have the opportunity to fix it and you can't fail.
Yeah.
Okay, so on that, is there a way to write in, you have to do this, you have to make those repairs by closing, or how does
It's all in the contract.
It is in.
Yeah, it's in here. Okay. It basically just says that they have to be done. Like, for example, up here, it says these things have to be done before closing. And then in here also, it says, this is another one. You have to make sure that all of your utilities are on beforehand. But it says in here somewhere,
well, what if it's physically impossible? All the guys are busy and nobody can come fix it.
Okay, you are going to run across that a lot. So then what you have to do is you just have to work out a credit. And I would recommend, we try to go for credit always because it's so much easier, cash credit. So like, for example, we have a deal right now that we're working on and they wanted some GFCI stuff done and they wanted a bunch of concrete work done. We got 2 different bids for different types of concrete work that need to be done. and they want to close in 3 weeks. And we don't want to do that work, you know, sell it. We want to just make it easy. Because what happens if you do that work and then they're like, we don't like you? It's like, well,
not only that, but the weather may not cooperate either.
The weather might not cooperate. So we negotiated. This guy happened to be an electrician. So GFCI stuff, easy. He's like, I'll do that. And then the concrete stuff, we got bids. And this was going to be this much, this was going to be this much. And so we said, we're going to give you a $600 credit for you to do the work on your own whenever you want to. And then guess what? A year later, you think they're going to really dump concrete work? Probably not. No. They're not.
So that's a credit off
price, on the price at closing, or additional credit towards other closing costs, or whatever we want to do. So. Okay.
Because it wasn't in writing.
Red-based paint, you want to make sure they did that. Property disclosure, yes. You know, you want to make sure they look over that. I don't typically bring that up when I'm presenting an offer. Cost paid. So this one's important, and it's hard to explain when you're working with the seller, because there's a good chance if the property's clean, that's going to have to be on their net sheet as a cost to them. But odds are it's not going to be used. And so, anyway, so that's, you know, $1,000. That's important to know. They're on the hook. So if an offer comes in, if the appraisal goes out and he says, hey, you have to repaint the shed, it's going to cost $2,000. And the seller's going to say, well, I don't want to do any of it. You're going to, if the seller says you don't want to do anything, you have to remind them, well, you're already on the hook for $1,000 of it. And if they get mad, saying, well, I didn't see that, you didn't explain it well. And so but if you explain it well, it'll all come back, and then emotions stay.
I have a question about that section. When they're on the line for $1,000, is that kind of like a credit, even if they don't use it, or is that just the case if used?
If you use it, yeah. If they don't use it, they lose it. And the buyer and the buyer's agent have no control over what the lender repairs are. Who controls that? The appraiser. So anyway, so that one is interesting. Lender required repairs. Do you ever see those in conventional? Rarely. But sometimes if it's really bad shape, they might call it. But my opinion is if you're doing a conventional deal and the house is clean, have that as 0. Because then it's just going to be that much of a cleaner offer when the seller looks at it. And their net's going to be $1,000 higher when they look at the net sheet. Does that make sense? Yeah, I'm fire hosing you guys with a lot of
because I mean, if there's a repair issue that's really a repair issue in the inspection, that's going to be dealt with separately anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a big one. One little number. You miss that. If you represent the buyer and you forget to put that in, big trouble. If you represent the seller and you forget to mention, oh, by the way, they want 3% of the price to go towards the closing costs, big trouble. Okay. How many of you guys totally understand this 3%?
It's really a rule of thumb, because it's not, closing costs aren't going to be exactly 3%, but 3% is often used because that generally gets the job done.
Correct. Depends on price. If you're at $100,000, you're probably going to need about 5% to cover all your closing costs. If you're at $200,000, 3% works. If you're at $300,000 to $400,000, you probably only need 2%. Because the closing costs are going to be about $5,000 to $8,000. So it just depends on where you are. Here's my personal opinion. If the property's listed, and Jody, you can disagree with me here, but I'm not going to change my mind. If you have an offer on a home that's listed for $200,000, and you write an offer, if it's listed for $200,000, and you write an offer for $200,000, and you want 3% in closing costs, is that a real full price offer?
No, Brett educated us on that.
Yeah.
Oh.
One of my biggest pet peeves is 3% is a lot of money. And so, I mean, that's $6,000 in this particular case. And so, is $194,000 a full price offer? No, no. And that's what they're offering if they do 3%. You know, and in this case, it's $305,000.
Now, if they offer 206 and 3%,
that's
for 200, that's a full price offer.
But you have this stuff in here, you have some of this stuff for the seller, you have some of this stuff. I mean, it still could, be arguable. But I mean, that's one of my biggest pet peeves. Hey, we sent you a full price offer. No, you didn't. And then we counter back, like, oh, we're offended. We sent you a full price offer.
You're not the only one who feels that.
Yeah,
you just need to know that.
It's just annoying. It's just annoying. We deal with it all the time.
You just have to explain it to the buyer.
Oh,
Yes,
I know.
the offer is that we're taking all this stuff out.
Yeah.
Can I say this from a buyer's point of view?
Totally.
I kind of feel like that's the seller realtor's job.
No, it is.
I mean, it's like we're expected to call and explain our offer.
No, totally. No.
Just don't call
agree
the
with
full
you
price
100%.
offer, is all he's saying.
But don't have your buyer get offended when we counter at $200,000
Right.
because it's a full price offer. It's only frustrating for us when buyers think that it's a real full price offer. Because if they were the seller, again, they would not look at it as a full price offer.
Okay, gotcha.
So, anyway, in fact, we had one a while back, and they actually said that because we countered back, and we kept it at the listing price, but we did the closing cost at 1.5%, just so that it looked better instead of raising the price to 206 or whatever. And they were really offended. They were going to walk, and I just said, well, and they said your seller should have known that the 3% is automatically built in whenever you list a property to pay for closing costs. And I was like, murder? No, that's not true. But I'm going to research that because I'd be curious as to how many homes actually do. And I mean, most homes average about 1.5% for something, whether it's a give on price, whatever. But definitely, most homes, did not have 3%. So I mean, it's a misconception, and so. But I love that you challenge me.
So I tried to ask Matt will do this because he said the same thing.
It got really heated on that.
Oh yeah, that's one of his pet peeves too.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I understand. I'm sort of understanding more now. But what would stop if the buyer wanted to offer a full price offer? What would stop you from saying, well, let's offer more to cover, because we're asking for closing costs, we're asking for all this. What would stop you from offering more to get that?
Happens all the time. All the time we get someone who offers 206 on a $200,000 listing. And the way I present it to the seller is I just say, hey, here's an offer for $200,000. They want 3% towards closing costs, so they're really offering about 194. And I mean, that's how you present it. And it's hard for the sellers to understand, so I basically say, hey, they're really offering 194, but they have $6,000 of their closing costs, and they would prefer to raise the price and finance it in versus coming up with that cash. And that's the easiest way I found to explain it, and it's still kind of hard to explain it. Every single offer, and that's why it's a pet peeve a lot of times. And as you do more deals, you guys will see it. Because when you explain it to a seller, it's really confusing, and they're like, "Why should I pay the closing costs? They're not paying mine." I mean, you come across the same situation every time.
You answered it.
Okay.
I was just that they want their closing costs because initially you do up the price there, they're paying the closing costs, but they just don't want to come in with it.
Totally. And it's awesome. It's awesome to cover the closing costs. I'm all for that. But I don't think it's expected in the market that the seller does that. It's more like, hey, the buyer has an option of coming in with the closing costs or financing it. So you figure out where you want to offer, and then you have the closing costs on top. Jody, what are your thoughts on that? Am I way too seller biased?
No, I think that's fine. And I think it's all about how you prep your buyers too going into it. If your buyers understand that they're asking $200,000 for this house, we need them to pay our closing costs. I think that's reasonable. Your buyers have to understand that it's real $6,000.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, sometimes $6,000 is the difference between walking away with $6,000 or breaking even on a house.
Right.
It's just communication. I mean, that is the key to life. And it's a key to our personal relationships. It's a key to our business relationships. And it's the key to being successful. It's just good communication.
I've had a couple buyers come in, obviously, wanting to do their closing costs and also come in lower. And I've always said to them, you can keep in mind this is going to hit their bottom line, and that's what they're going to look at. That's their number that they're going to look at. And if you are going to hit it and you're going to hit it hard, then keep in mind, you need to decide how bad you want this house. Because if you hit them, gut punch them, they may not be coming back. They may just reject. So I try to tell them that when they're doing closing costs and not coming in at asking or above. I've had one that did come in above and knew that she needed to come in above to get her closing.
We ought to just do that. So this is what our offer is going to do to the seller. Show them that it's not good for us.
The hard part when you're doing a net sheet for the seller, when you represent the buyer, is you don't know how much they owe or don't know.
Well, sure.
And so it's going to show for a $200,000 house, it's going to show they're walking with tons of cash. But really, they might have a first and second mortgage, and they might be coming in with $300,000. So it is hard to guess that.
And don't certain loan types allow or not allow for certain expenses?
For closing costs, well, most do. I can't think of. I mean, you can't like finance a fridge, you know, anything like that for closing costs.
I bought a place I was going to buy a place in Kenya, and it was a HUD. And they didn't tell us that they had the appraisal already appraised what they were offering. Or I didn't understand that either.
Yeah.
And so they wanted me to come up with what to do.
Yeah, a little bit the same.
This is kind of off topic, but so when you're listing a house, do you put that like closing costs into the listing price? Like just assuming?
Yeah, sometimes.
When you're listing it?
Yeah, so like when you're going into a listing appointment and you're asking them how much, well, however you do it, do you just assume that you could get an offer that's going to ask this level?
Yeah, I mean, we've tried that a lot, and it just adds a lot of confusion. We used to actually send a net sheet to them when we list the property, saying, "Hey, this is kind of what you can expect based on this." And late in our office, started throwing in 3%, and no matter what we did, they thought we were trying to do like a 9% commission. You know, and it just got really confusing. So I just say, "Hey, look, this is about what you can expect to walk away with this list price, assuming it's like a cash deal, but be prepared that a lot of people want you to finance into closing costs. So, you know, and be prepared that most homes in this price range sell for about 98% of list price. So, you know, you probably aren't going to get a full price.
So you kind of touch on it verbally and then cross that bridge if you have to.
Yeah, but it is really hard to explain to a seller the 3% closing costs. And it's really, really, really hard to explain it to them and have it make sense before an offer is actually in front of them. So I try not to go there too deep. It just gets really messy. And you don't want to make mountains out of molehills, because what happens if you spend all that time explaining it and then you get a cash offer? They don't do it. You know, it's touchy, and I can see why, especially Brett. But yeah, probably got it worked up. So
we did get it worked up,
which is fine. It's good. Okay, so here's a breakdown of the closing costs. This is important. So appraisal fee, buyer fee typically, appraisal reinspection fee. Many times the seller will typically pay for that, is what's pretty common, but not expected, but it's common. Closing escrow fee, typically that one one's always shared equal. Lender doc prep fee, it's a buyer fee. Tax service fee, typically a buyer fee. Flood cert, typically a buyer fee. Lender required inspections. I rarely come across where a lender requires an inspection. Usually there's required work to be done. So I actually, if I was representing a buyer, I'd probably, not put that on there, because it just complicates an offer. I haven't seen that very often. Attorneys, typically not applicable, because most people don't hire attorneys in Idaho for real estate. Title coverage policy, I've never seen anybody but the seller pay for that. Buyer policy, lender's policy, if you're getting a loan, the lender's going to require this. I've always seen the buyer pay for that. You have other title coverage that you can do. Typically, the buyer pays for it, but I mean, all of this is negotiable. I'm just explaining what's kind of the typical norm. And then domestic well potability and productivity, I didn't really know what the difference was on those until a couple of years ago. Who knows what the difference is between potability and productivity?
Potability is it usable? Can you cook with it? Can you clean your food with it? Take a shower in it? Can you drink it? Exactly. Productivity is kind of the pressure. How much water does it produce?
Yeah. And if you want to save some time, this one's about $35, and you have to take a sample in. This one here, the buyer's inspector will typically do it. And I just say, hey, will your inspector do the productivity test and then just send us a bill? And it makes it a lot easier.
So this productivity is water pressure?
Water flow. Yeah. Yep. Make sure your flow is, your pressure's good. I mean, we've listed houses where the pressure is and it's expensive. You're going to fix it. Yeah. But you want to know that if you're a buyer before you take your first shower and it just drips on you. So, unless you have no hair, right though. Okay, septic inspections and septic pumping. Typically, those are done by the same person at the same time for no additional fee, really. In fact, every time they pump it, they're going to inspect it, so you wouldn't see. These are typically about $250. This is about $75. So $325, $350 is what this is. A survey. When would you do a survey?
If the house is on a lot that's more of a wilderness where there's no defined fences, where you're not really sure where the property lines are at all.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah. Would you do a survey on a regular neighborhood?
Not likely.
Not unless there's some huge major dispute with the neighbor of where the lines are.
Chad, I actually have done surveys in neighborhoods when I also needed a fence. That was part of our contract.
How many fences in this town are not on the right line, would you say?
Well, too many. That's why I did a survey.
Yeah, for sure.
What's the approximate survey?
If you want a surveyor to just mark pins, like this guy's asking, probably $350.
Yeah.
Average. If you want him to do an actual survey, $700 to $1,500. Yeah, and it's not common to be on there. Occupancy, this is important too, if they're going to live in it or not. If it does intend to occupy the property, do you think they're a little more motivated to buy it? A little more emotionally attached to this offer? If it's an investment property, they typically don't care. They just want to do it. Do you guys want me to share with you my notes of closing costs, allowable? So you know how to write the offer with FHA versus DA and all that? So I called a couple lenders. Looks like my note is from 2014. So I don't know if it's changed since then. But typically, actually it has changed. But in fact, anyway, per my note in 2014, the buyer typically couldn't pay the tax service fee FHA. I don't even know if that's like that anymore. And this is a VA loan, so that's why Dwayne for all these is a seller. But I called Movement, and the appraisal reinspection we agreed to, the closing fee, they don't care anymore, so they just follow the contract. So you go shared equally. Most people don't have a doc prep anymore, it's all in their origination fee. So that's not applicable. Tax service fee, flood cert, they don't really care either. So if you want to make an offer, and here's another thing, is that most of these closing costs are all covered in this 3%. And so if you're thinking that you're doing a big favor to your buyer by like marking all these on seller, and all, I mean, these are typically paid for by the seller anyway, but a lot of times you'll do all that, you're just asking them to pay double, and they're not going to pay double because there's only one fee, and so it just kind of complicates it.
So that was the mistake I made.
Yeah.
On this one that I just did.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I did it, but I did it.
Well, I mean,
and thank goodness I had a good agent that was like very patient with me.
Yeah.
He's like, he goes, well, these are going to be covered under the 3%. Why did you do that? And I'm like, I wish I could tell you why I did that. But I'm learning.
I don't think I'm understanding the 3% because in my head, I'm thinking the 3% is to pay the commission. Okay, then we need to talk about all closing costs.
So did everybody hear her question? She's like, I don't think I understand the 3% because it covers, the commission. So, okay, so every house that's listed on the MLS has a built-in commission to be paid. You typically don't know what the listing agents agreed with the seller, but I mean, it should be 3% if you're doing, everything you're supposed to be doing. But it's 3% for the listing agent, and then it's 3% typically for the buyer's agent. It's important that you check in the MLS if they're giving you 3% or not, because they have to put in there whether it's 3 or 2.5. And some agents will discount their commission to 5%, and then they expect you to discount your commission. Homie, don't play like that. So that was for you, Phil. So anyway, I mean, it's just if you want to do that or not, but I mean, you should get a 3% commission. And so anyway, that's built in. So yes, on the net sheet, I typically show them what it is minus the commission and minus the seller's closing costs. The seller's closing costs are going to be standard title policy, the escrow fee, tax prorations. That adds up to be about 1.5%. Okay. You want to write that one down, that one's a good one because it's usually pretty dang accurate. If the seller sells their house on their own, they're going to have about 1.5% closing costs. That's title company fee, closing fee, tax prorations. Closing costs are about 1.5% per seller. And then if they have a commission, then it's 7.5% because it's a 6% commission plus the 1.5%. That's built in. The seller's expecting that, and they all know that that's easy. It's kind of an expectation that they have. The seller, on the other hand, okay, I'm going to explain this just like I do to a buyer or to a seller. So if you were to pay cash, which 100 years ago was probably your only way to do it, or the most common way to do it, you have the cash, you don't have to pay closing costs because you have the cash. Most people don't have the cash, so they have to borrow money. And borrowing money is not free. A lot of people get involved to borrow money, and so there are fees involved with borrowing that money. Those fees are going to be an appraisal fee, appraisal reinspection fee, a lender doc prep fee, tax service fee, flood cert fee, origination fee. I mean, there's a lot of fees. I mean, you'll see it on the closing statement. And so when they buy that house, they have to come in with their down payment, and if they're getting a loan because they don't have enough cash, they have to pay the closing costs associated with getting that loan, which is another 3%. And so if you're buying a $100,000 house, and you're paying a 5% down payment, you have to come in with $5,000 for the down payment, probably another $3,000 for closing costs. You got to come in with $8,000. And so what people do, but if they don't have an agent, do they save money? Because that might be part of your confusion. Because people sometimes wonder when they're a buyer, You're like, well, how do I pay you? When are you going to drop the bomb that I have to come up with 3% pay you? I mean, they never do. Because if you're showing listed properties, the commission's already built in. And if they skip you and go to listing agent, I mean, the listing agent isn't typically going to drop the commission just because you go to them directly. So they're going to pay the same price for the house whether they have you or not have you. So is that making sense?
Well, it does, but so then my question becomes, so if we put in, if a buyer makes an offer and they say you pay the closing costs, if it's already built in the MLS listing, then that is.
Say that one more time.
Okay.
It's not very often does it say in the listing agreement in the MLS that buyer will pay closing costs. The seller will pay buyer's closing costs. Sometimes it might say it. Rockwell does that automatically with all of theirs. But not many people set the expectation, we are going to pay your closing costs.
I misunderstood what you're saying, because what I'm hearing is when you go in and you list a house, you build at 7.5%. Is not 3% of that the buyer's commission?
Absolutely.
So it is a full price offer if it's already built in, right?
Correct. But that's not what we're talking about.
Oh.
This is an additional 3%.
That 3%.
Or just closing costs, which very likely
Buyer's
will only be us one.
Right.
Commission is not closing costs.
Okay. Where's the commission thing on there? Do we
It's
have
not.
to?
No, we don't talk about commission on contracts. You're not supposed to negotiate commission on contracts. On purchase contracts, you negotiate commission on a buyer rep and seller. And so on your buyer representation agreement, you're going to say we're going to buy properties that have a 3% commission built into it, and they'll be paid through closing. If you go to for sale by owner, you're going to look at those if you want me to represent you, but we're only going to buy it if they pay me 3%. So that's built in on that. Has nothing to do with this.
Okay, that
So
totally makes so much more sense.
yeah, it does. It makes a lot more sense. When you understand it, then you can understand other sides.
Right.
And that's the key part. Because yeah, I bet you a lot of people that I talk to don't get that when I'm saying it's not really full price because they don't fully understand this. But really, when you have this and the 7.5%, it's really 10.5% below list price. Is what the seller's going to walk away with. Because you have the 7.5, and then you're adding another 3, so it's 10.5.
Right. So is there the potential that 3% will only actually come up to 1.5%? I mean, is that like an inflated number a little bit to make sure?
Depends on the price range. But as a buyer's agent, you should be aware of how much it is and to basically, make sure that you're not asking for more than you need. It used to be that if you only needed 2%, the buyer would lose that 1% and the seller would net that 1%. But now they just change it to where it can be used for other expenses, not related to financing. So you can put it for sometimes or part of it or something like that. So anyway. Does that make sense? Yeah. No, this is huge. And here's what's going to happen though. Tomorrow, you might be just as confused as you were today because this is really confusing. It really is. But once your brain gets it, then all the deals start making a lot more sense. But yeah, it's 10.5% really when you're doing that. And when you're talking about 7.5% of $300,000, that's like a big chunk. And now with 3%, that's like another $12,000 off. So their number that they walk away with is so far away from $300,000. They're like, so anyway, I think this is what Jess talked about on us on staying on track. I wasn't even going to do this. We're taking a lot of time. Is this helpful?
It's so helpful.
Because okay, good. It's not boring. Just man, these are like the most boring when I do this. But I think once you've done a few deals, then it makes more sense. But in real estate class, this was torture. Close date's important. I put that on my sheet. Pioneer title, important. Possession upon closing, that one's important because that's when they want to move in. So I want to make sure it says upon closing because then you don't have to change anything. But let's say the close date is December 1st, and they put possession shall be December 1st, and then they have to extend it out. And if you don't extend out the possession, you're in contract saying that they can move in a week early. So typically people will never mess with this, but I think newer agents might just have a mistake putting that in there. They just do upon closing, and then you never have to change that. And but make sure you check that as a new agent too, because if they really do have that in there, they don't have to explain that to the buyer's agent.
It's in writing.
It's in writing. It's agreed upon. And if you miss that, they're going to show up with the moving truck saying, "Hey, here's our contract. You gave us possession. You're out of contract." Prorations, if you have fuel tanks, then they want to hear back. Halloween at 7 o'clock. I was happy to see that. I think I got that at like 8 o'clock in the morning. You know, I mean, I have 6 kids. Thanks, Wayne.
And my Halloween was crazy too. I felt the same way.
So it just happens. But I mean, I try not to do that because I've been in that situation so many times that, I mean, just try to think about.
What do you typically get for a time frame for response?
I try to give at least a night. You know, so if I'm writing an offer today, Friday at 5 o'clock, I'm going to give them until Monday at noon. But I mean, it depends too. I mean, a buyer might be like, "Man, I want this thing," and if that's the case, you know, I would not do it sooner than like Saturday at like 7 o'clock. I want to give at least 24 hours.
Do you do the same thing on your counters?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you click on the assignment, and you have always done the other for any case that may not be sold or transferred out. When is the case that it can be?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even catch that actually. I don't really look at that one. But I mean, that just means that when this is popular is when you're in a hotter market and you get that property in a contract and then you realize you don't want it, or you get it under contract as a strategy because you know 5 other people want it, and then you find out who the other 5 people that made an offer on it was, and you say, "Hey, I'll sell this contract to you because I can have it signed. So pay me $500 and I'll walk and I'll sign this contract."
So that assigns the contract.
It allows them to assign the contract to another buyer.
I think another possibility might be if there's a new couple they're looking to buy and they get it under contract. It turns out for whatever reason they aren't able to, that it could be assigned to a parent to close the deal and get financing.
That would be more likely here in our scenario. And they have to, they have to agree to the same contract. If you change one thing, it's not valid.
Then it needs to be pounded out again.
So here's our contract. But yeah, that's exactly what you can see more in this market. Like the dad has to be added on or mom. Okay, and then this year, and then we did a counter offer. You got to check this. Okay, so if you sign this offer, which we did, and we did a counter offer, and if you don't check that it's subject to a counter offer,
it's not subject to a counter offer.
You just accepted their offer. One check box. Okay, you don't want to do that. And then we wrote, our counter offer, and I changed the earnest money to $1,000. Purchase price $220. I called their lender and I said, "Hey, that's a lot of money. How much are they going to need?" "Oh, we'll only 2% of this." And so some buyers agents might not like me doing that, but I don't want to, that's $3,000. So I'll do that research, but it does annoy some buyers agents. But I'm representing my seller. They gave me a pre-qual. I think I have the right to call their
okay with you that they're annoyed with you.
I don't really care.
Their job.
I don't really care. Yeah, my job isn't to. Well, we need to be friends with everybody, but we don't be friends with someone at the cost of our clients. Fiduciary responsibility.
In number 6, you essentially said we're not going to do a survey where we have the seller essentially mark those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the seller's like, "Hey, I've lived here for 5 years and know exactly who they are." But then we countered again, and they're like, "Well, we have a neighbor who said that doing their offer 200 feet. So we've agreed now to pay for survey. And then this guy wants to buy a house. And he doesn't, he needs a little more time. So we set up. We're still negotiating. We just didn't counter offer him 3 months ago.
Can you go down for just a second? So you said make sure you mark this box that says something about this is what?
Yeah.
Okay. We got
We're doing a
subject
counter
to
offer.
attached.
And now, this side signature means nothing unless they agree to the counter offer. So we're saying, hey, we agree to everything in this offer.
The seller.
The seller.
Okay.
With the exception of these changes.
Okay. So when you come back and you're representing your people, you're saying mark the box and then add your changes. Okay.
But yeah, if you send a counter without that checked, dangerous game. I mean, I would think that a judge, if you sent this counter as part of this attachment, then you probably wouldn't lose in court. I think the judge would say, hey, the intent was there. But I mean, if you really want to go down that road with somebody from California who's going to try to force everything, we edit that in California for that. Anyway.
As long as you don't make that.
Doing okay over there, Wilson? All I see is Jody from here. Just her eyes. Okay, we're going to exit out of this. Okay, so we're going to the next stage here. And I think I covered this because I think I'm covering a lot of the stuff in these next PowerPoints with what we just did. Okay, checklist for writing an offer. Okay, so I got to stop share. I've got to Are you guys seeing the PowerPoint now? No? Okay. Now you're seeing the PowerPoint? Yeah? Okay, good. Okay, so checklist for writing an offer. We talked about that. Did we or did we not? So just make sure real quick, you have your price and your terms, terms being the type of loan, make sure it's correct, make sure all the boxes are checked. Conveyances, what's going to be included and not. Did you go over the property disclosure? Earnest money, time for seller acceptance. I think it goes a long way to be courteous in that. And to try to explain to your buyer, because a lot of times the buyers just push, push, push. And I think if we can set proper expectations, then nobody wants to be rude. They just get excited. So, financing terms, and going back from a buyer's perspective, everybody wants a great deal. But I can say that the better deals I've found are when people actually do a little better offer. Because when they lowball, it's almost every single time the sellers want to reject it, and then I talk them into not rejecting it, and then they want to counter full price. Just because they're mad. So, anyway. But I mean, then sometimes 1 out of 100 deals, you get a great deal. It's just rarely happens. So, especially in this market.
There's a moral: if you get a low ball offer, make sure you give them plenty of time to cool down before you demand a response.
Yeah, honestly, I try to email them that, and I let them kind of have a couple hours before I talk to them. Because they get hot. And I don't. I mean, when you're at a high stress level, it's just hard to make good decisions. So I kind of let that kind of cool down, and then I get a picture. And
when someone does low ball, are they likely to even be reasonable ever on the counter?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, what you want to do, what I do, again, going back to that first slide, is you say, you basically say, hey, this is their best case scenario. Now we do their best. Now we do our best case scenario. And then we'll see if they are going to be in the middle. Because if they go up to where the seller wants to be, then you know that they are just fishing for a low price. But if they kind of, go 5,000 above their low ball offer, and we're like, hey, these guys are playing hardball. How bad do you want to sell? And they're might be like, well, let's go down, let's make this happen. Or they're gonna be like, no way, we're not that motivated. And so you just have to work through that. So it's all about the seller, and what's their position. But when you're making that negotiation, you have to know if that property is listed. Because if it's a low ball and you're listed too high, it might be a really reasonable offer. So it's important. How do you get good at finding out how to determine value on the house? Practice seeing it. Yeah. Do tons of them. If you want to have fun, you can, this is like a fun weeknight activity, a Friday night by yourself. Basically, have somebody print off a bunch of properties that have sold in different price ranges with pictures, and then have them give you. There's 5 things that I use to determine value: age of the home, bedroom bath count, total square footage, lot size, and how many garages. With those things, I can get a pretty good idea. So if you want to have a fun game, you have a lot of time. Have somebody get a good black Sharpie and cross off the sales price and hand you some MLS sheets, color pictures, and cover up the price and the sold price and anything in there that will give you a price, and then have you determine what.
So neighborhood's not as important as we think it is.
What's that?
Is neighborhood is important? I mean, trying to keep them all. When you're doing comparables, trying to keep them all in the same neighborhood.
Well, in our market, it's really hard to have comparables in the same neighborhood. So you just have to do similar neighborhoods. I just try to use that apples and apples comparison. If I can get something that's in similar age, similar square footage, similar garage count, similar bedroom and bath count, if it's a 3-bath, then odds are the other homes have a finished basement too. If it's a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, then odds are there's some unfinished basement part. So if it's a 5-bedroom, 3-bath, I want to find 4 to 5 to 6-bedroom homes to compare it with, and then do some different comparables and find some comparables and guess on what the price is, and then do that on 5 or 6 houses in different ranges, or maybe do it on 5 or 6 houses of the same price range, and then look them up in the MLS and see what the price is and start pushing. Because the market is saying that price of that home is determining what market value is today. So.
I missed one. Age of home, the amount of bedrooms and baths, square footage, garage size.
Yep. Your bills.
Age of home.
Oh. So.
Lot size.
Lot size. Yeah. Because I mean, it's hard to compare a home in a third of an acre with 3. It's a different neighborhood. All right, moving on. Representing the seller, receive the offer. These scripts are pretty important on page 17. Does anybody want to script with me? Actually, there's only one side on the scripts, so I think it's important to read these. Do you guys want me to read them, or do you guys want to take a couple minutes and just read these so we can talk about them? Okay. So we're on page 17 on my book, buyer offer objections. You're going to run into this, okay? And my advice is try to make it as simple as possible going into the deal, and come together on price. And once you come together on price, you have a contract, then try to negotiate other things. Because you want to make it simple, especially in this market. If you complicate it and bring all these other things and another offer comes in, because there's a lot of simple, clean offers that come in, and it just, I mean, if it's a high maintenance offer, probably a high maintenance buyer, and I mean, it's just a sign, what. So when the buyer wants the seller to make repairs, when you show the house, the buyer's going to see like, oh, I want this done, I want this done, I want this done, and many times we'll have the agent say, well, we want this. Can we get a copy of this? Can you do this? And I don't, I'm just like, hey, let's come together on price. Let's see if we even have a deal. And then let's worry about that in inspection. Because repairs should all be part of the inspection process. So, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, so this is your script that you use. And this is a very, very good script. Until you have a physical inspection, we will not know how much these items will cost. And we could find additional repairs we may want to negotiate. And that is totally true. That's the purpose of inspection. You're going to find more stuff. So consequently, you have three choices. One, you can offer the seller less money now to compensate for these items. Rarely goes over well with the seller. You can ask the seller now for a credit to repair these items using your own contractor. I'd only do that if it's a big deal. If you're talking about, tracks on a closet door, it's inspection. Or three, I usually advise clients to wait for the physical inspection and negotiate all repair items at one time. That's the one I typically recommend. You need to give them options. I mean, it's their choice. But your job is to make it easy and help them buy the house. And number three is going to make it easier. Phil and Jody, would you agree with that? Okay. When the buyer wants to make a low offer, there are three ways to negotiate a transaction. One, you can make a low offer and run the risk of the seller rejecting it or countering back at full price to compensate, which is totally a natural human reaction. If somebody throws a punch, you want to throw a punch back. And that's how they do it. Number two, you can make an offer closer to the asking price and be less flexible if there's a counter offer. Number three, if you really want this home and are concerned that another buyer may purchase it, you can make a full price offer and give the seller what they want. It's your choice. How would you like me to negotiate this offer? In my opinion, the only time you would offer a full price offer in this market is if it's like less than a week on the market. I mean, if it's over a week on the market, there's probably some budge on the price. But if it's a new property and your person loves it, then odds are, if they're watching, odds are other ones are there and you probably want to do a full price offer. But after a week and it's not sold, then I mean, to me, that means there's some budging in that price in today's market. The thing is, the market changes. I mean, these strategies are for seller's market. Everything changes as we move to a buyer's market in the next 1 to 3 or 5 years. Presenting the offer to a listing agent. Call the listing agent immediately to let them know an offer is coming. Using the edge, invite the listing agent to the buying loop and submit the offer for the client to review electronic signature. Request a reply within the shortest amount of time your market will allow. And I don't think we have a market standard for that. So, if the seller counters, consult with your buyer to either accept the counter offer or recounter the offer. I mean, there's a lot of deals where I've had clients, whether buyers or sellers, and they're just like, I'm done, I want to reject. I was like, you know what? Just because they gave us this response doesn't mean that's what they're willing to do. Let's do a counter and we get it. But that's again why they're hiring us, because they're not necessarily good at like doing all of these things, and they expect us to try to keep it even keel. And the cool thing about this is, I mean, my goal when I go into a listing appointment or if I'm representing a buyer is I just say, hey, my goal is we're meeting now for the first time, and through this transaction, we're going to see some stuff. It just happens. Every deal is so different. But my goal is to be a better friend after the sale and at closing than we are right now. And if I do my job right, then that's going to be the case. And I mean, it's a cool way to start out our relationship. And it's a cool way to be able to bring that up at closing, ask if we're better friends now. And so, and that's just through helping them, and that's our job. And it's true. I I mean, we are dealing with this closing that I had this morning in Rigby. It's just a nasty. So the wife signed this morning at 8:15, and signed the husband at 12:30. And it was just emotional. She was crying, supporting the closing, and he's just direct too. But I mean, we are, I know we're close. I mean, I plan on, taking, him out to lunch, and I mean, it's just a tough situation. But we're friends here. Trust me, I trust them, and they needed someone in the middle of them, to be able to
So
help.
she sold her interest to him, or?
No, they had to sell the house together. So he stayed in the house. She moved out into it. So, but I mean, they're in love. And now something's happened, and there's still feelings, and they both don't want to get divorced. They know that the way things are, they have no other choice, and they can't even be around each other. But they, they'll be trying to. Anyway, it's just a tough, situation. They hired 2 other agents before us, and each one they backed out because there's so, they just don't really want it. But they, I won't go into details, but I mean, it's just things have to change before it can ever work. And they tried to back out 3 or 4 different times with me, and I just said, hey, we can't text this. We got to get together. Come in on Monday morning. Let's talk. And it was always at night, right? And when they start freaking out. And then we get together Monday. I'm like, hey, what are your options? What's going to happen? 3 months you're going to want to sell again. You have to sell. So if you want to back out, you want to cancel this deal now, I represent you. I'm going to do that. Because, in 3 months, I expect you to hire me again. But I mean, by postponing, how's your life going to get that? Okay, let's do it. So anyway, I mean, that's our job, our role.
So can I, did you take that personality test? Well, I don't know, Mom. I mean, but it's interesting. Would be. I don't think a driver. Isn't that what he stands for? Like, I'm assuming that's like really, we're gonna do this. I would think you're like really easy going.
So I'm an SD.
What's S?
So S is more loyal, people loyal, and you don't want to let people down.
So the whole time, are you like, what are you typing something?
Aren't those opposites on the chart too? So there's kind of a top balance between the 2 of those.
Yeah, SD, like if you're a D, you don't care as much about people's feelings, just naturally. But I'm an SD, so I'm a driver, but I kind of lead with like, I know how you feel. It's like keep us going. So an SD is like, okay.
We have feelings with each other.
Yeah, we don't show them very much.
Yeah, we just
Oh,
don't
you're
carry
one of
bullets.
those-
Yeah, I don't
you're
carry
nasty.
bullets with my gun. I just fire my gun.
We don't get mad, we just get you.
And that's
Yep, I'll never forget you.
Ask my 7 ex-husbands why I am the way I am. They'll just go.
just try to be patient if he ever comes to you with
I don't ever freak out. I'm ready.
no, don't get mad at us if we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, no, I don't.
freak out in front of you.
Oh,
He hangs up the phone.
And
Close the door because he needs to be contained.
There's a reason that cell phones play. I don't take a cell phone in the bedroom because that's where all the little smash from the head and the wrist go to land.
She's telling all your secrets.
It's also the reason you go to the gym and
I
get a
don't know if
punching
that's
bag
necessarily
there.
true. I mean, I'm not that way at all. I mean, it's S is not an explosive personality. I'm a pretty easy going kid.
We just build up.
Yeah. But I don't. I mean, I'm not that. I'm not explosive. Yeah. But no, it's that. This assessment is amazing. Like you want, like an admin, S's are really good for that because they're like loyal and they want people to be happy, and you actually want an SC or a CS for that. A C is that super organized structure. So you want someone that's good with people and very organized. That's who you want for your admin. For an agent, you want a D and a DI, someone who loves to talk to people. I'm actually lower on the app. Like, I like to talk this way, but I like alone time. And I like time with people that I know. I'm not necessarily, if we were just sitting in a room and just want to talk about stuff and I don't know anybody,
So you just told them like that.
yeah, everybody does. There's no right or wrong. That's a cool thing with this assessment. Is as soon as you understand how DISC works, there's no weird people.
Well, different types of
They're just different. Because people are only weird if you don't understand their personality.
It takes
And
all
weird,
the types to make it work.
Yeah, and weird is just different than what we are. So if I hired people that were just like me, it would not be. Diversity is like huge. You want to have people that where you're offset your strengths where I'm weak and vice versa. Cool. That's a 10. You're good at using your 10.
Sorry, it's just so interesting.
It is interesting.
What part?
What were you gonna say? Okay. It is. It's huge, man. It's one of the first things we teach people that work for us is this personality, DISC assessment, and how to understand people. Because it's totally true. As soon as you understand it, there is no weird person. And people who are rude on the phone aren't rude. They're just, there are jerks, but most people aren't jerks. They're just IDs. And they don't realize they're being jerks. Yesterday, one of the guys on our phone was like, man, you're so mean. Like, what did they do to be mean? They just did this and did that. And I was like, and I guarantee you, if you talk to him, you would not think he was mean. It's just his personality. You have to adapt to his personality, and then he'll respect you because you talk like him. Because most people aren't going to understand the DISC, and then they like to work with people that like.
So here.
Yeah. So Steven is high I. And so I like to tell a story in like 10 seconds. Steven will get like 3 or 4 minutes to tell it. And so sometimes like Steven, like take out 3 paragraphs. I gotta go. One of Steven's favorite words is, "You want to hear a funny?" I was like, 5 seconds maybe. So because I don't have patience like that, and it's just not because I'm a jerk. It's just my personality style. Right. We got to figure out each other's personality styles. So sometimes Steven will probably be like, "Oh, Chad, I got to tell you, I'll see you."
Exactly. I've done that.
Yeah.
Do that too.
Okay. If you guys haven't had Jess teach a DISC class, that is a change your life class. Jessica Carter.
How often does she do that?
I don't know.
It used to be that she did it monthly, but I think since the KP came out, she hasn't done them a whole lot.
Yeah. Okay, so moving along here. Checklist for reviewing an offer. We've gone over that. Present your offer to the client. I'm on page 21. It's the same page. Presenting to the offer. Basically, first call your client, let them know you have it. If possible, present your offer in person. It is way better if you can present in person. And don't text this stuff. Texting gets you into trouble when you're negotiating. You can't convey emotion through a text. And so people will misinterpret your text. And it's just, if you want to set yourself up for trouble and a rocky deal and mistrust, then negotiate a deal through a text. I just promise you, your life is going to be a lot more difficult if you do it through text. There's just something about being able to talk on the phone and hear your voice and to have them understand where you're coming from and not have it, misinterpreted in a different way. And in person's even better. But in this world now, in person rarely happens. I like it better just to talk. It's way better for me. But I tell people when I'm on the phone, I'm like, we have a few different options. You can just tell me what you want. Hey, is today team meeting? Huh? What are you bringing lunch for? Because there
Oh,
a
real
milestone
estate
on it?
class, yeah.
Okay. So basically, what was I saying?
By email or phone,
Oh yeah,
but never
you
text.
can do it by email only, and email back and forth. Totally don't want to do it. You can do it by phone, but I tell people I prefer to do it in person if we can. But we just have to find the time to meet, and we have to, it's going to take longer. And they just say, well, let's just do it on the phone. And I think you can do it effectively on the phone, but you have to be prepared. You have to write down the key points. And I call the other agent. I ask my questions about pre-qual, their situation. I have my recommendation of what I want to recommend to them. And I have all the key points of the offer. So I go over all that. And then if it's on a Friday night, unless it's a pretty clean offer, I say, do you want to make a decision now? But if it's kind of complicated, I just say, why don't we do this? Now I've presented it to you. Here's my recommendation. Think about it overnight, and let's talk in the morning and figure out. And that seems to be helpful for certain personality types. A high D, like, why would we put this off and talk again tomorrow? So you have to know your personality type. But if it's a high C, I mean, they're going to have a ton more questions. So, anyway. Presenting the offer, a whole bunch of scripts here. We're running out of time. Presenting a low offer to your seller. Now that's lower than our asking price, but it is an offer, so we need to decide what you would like to do. It's really hard to talk to someone about a low offer when you're not in person. It's just a lot different. So, and if I have a deal that's turning really shaky, for example, 2 months ago, I had someone that lived in the same house for 40 years, and he is high DC, okay? So DCs can come across a certain way. She gets it. Anyway, who is? Oh, you are? Okay. So anyway, they can come across a little bit ignorant, and they're impatient, and they're just harder. Anyway, 2 days before, and they were moving to St. George. Big, huge move. They're both retired. 2 days, 3 days before closing, we do our regular septic inspection. The septic tank is cracked. And days away or months away from caving in and just collapsing and overflowing the house with sewage. So it was bad. And so anyway, I just said, you know what? We're not going to talk about this over the phone. We need to talk about this in person. When can I come over? Or when can you come to my office? And then that gives them an hour to think about and get all screwed up. But we put that deal together, but it was going down. And not because they didn't want to fix it, it's just they couldn't deal with any more stress in their life. They're so overwhelmed. So anyway. And I think most people that hire me, they can do it on their own. They just don't want to. They just would rather pay someone. So. But this guy wouldn't have. He wouldn't. She could have, but it was just difficult. And he knows that. We talk now after the fact, and they sent me letters and cards. They appreciate it. Someone that can keep them under control. And they're first to say that. So. Okay, respond to the offer. You got to get signatures where it doesn't matter. If you don't have a signature, it means nothing. When you have a counter offer, there's some scripts. I'm just presenting it, but it kind of speaks for itself. A key point too is I used to think that counter offer number one, if we went to counter offer number two, everything in counter offer number one would stay on, it would carry forward to counter offer number two. When you do counter offer number two, it's like counter offer number one doesn't exist.
So you're starting with your original.
Yeah. What's that?
It's the original plus two, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, when you go down to counter offer number four, the deal is the original offer everything on counteroffer number 4. Counter 1, 2, and 3 don't exist. Other than a trail of signatures and deadlines that keep it all in the contract. I learned that for a few years too. And it worked out. I don't know how, but it was like just talking. And the other agent didn't know either, I think.
That's the scary part.
That's the scary part. Anyway, that's pretty much it, really. So, what in here have we not covered that you want to talk about, or what else do you want to discuss that would be important to discuss? Or now is the time for tangents. What do you want to talk about?
How do you schedule out your closing dates and make sure that you have enough time? If you're talking, making sure that everything's ready to go on time for that closing. How do you normally change stuff like that?
Like when you write an offer, how much time you need? I mean, my rule of thumb is most lenders need 2 days. So if you have a buyer that wants to close in 2.5 weeks, it means nothing unless you've got a lender that's backing them up with that time frame. So I would just say, well, let's call your lender right now and get them on the phone and see if they can do that. And the lender's going to be like, oh, but yeah, you don't want to write an offer 2.5 weeks. If I get an offer from somebody and it says they want to close in 2.5 weeks and it's a VA loan, it's like, okay, I'm going to be doing both sides of this deal, which is fine. I'm happy to help new agents, but it's just the way it works. Did you have another question?
How long is a, qualification letter good for? I mean, especially if they missed on a house or have tried them.
They're pretty good. I'm not asking for that to be updated very much because, especially if they bought a house or 2 before. I mean, you know how to pay your bills on time, you know how to budget, save money. Then 3 months later, probably. Ryan?
Mr. No Shade November.
Yeah, started yesterday. What else? No questions? Is that good?
Yes.
I was hoping it wasn't. I mean, this is seriously one of the most boring ones that I've sat in. But I was excited to teach this one because it's good stuff. I guess the biggest thing is don't be afraid. Well, okay, don't ask the other agent on the other side of the deal to be the one to help you through the transaction. Okay. So, because I mean, I'll be happy to help you, but I'm helping you with the interest of my seller. I mean, that's our job. But I'm not gonna like screw you over. But I'm not going to say, hey, look out for your buyer in this way. I'm gonna make it easy for the seller, right? And so it's not like it's gonna be bad. But if that's all you have to do with questions, then you can. But I mean, definitely try to use somebody else. Like, hey, can you look this off before I send it? Can you review this? Can I run this past you? How do I write this up? Okay. Phil, any questions? Lori, Jody? Nothing?
It's independent.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Thanks, Chad. You did great.
Thank you. See you guys later.
With the time I have brain injury, I almost have to have somebody in the back of my brain telling me what to do. And I'm still so new to that.